Well, folks, we're live. It's Tuesday, and we just saw The Acolyte. And, well, I wish I didn't, but I get to hang out with all you wonderful people, including you, my co-host. What up, Caffeinated Wolf?
What up? We just watched Acolyte episode 4, and all I can say is it was an episode.
It happened. Things happened. Well, didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And I would describe this episode as Walking Simulator Star Wars Edition, because we watched people...
It's like a Fallout game.
Yeah. We walked, we had the same conversation. We walked, we had the same conversation. Folks, I'm convinced that we live in a video game, or at least the people who make movies like Star Wars think we live in a video game, because these shows feel like a game. Walk to this point, get the information, move to this point, get the information. Whatever happened to like a sweeping narrative where we didn't stop every 5 seconds for exposition?
There's just like absolutely zero flow to this. Nothing happened that mattered. And not that that's really all too different from the 3 episodes prior, but this was the shortest episode so far, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like you used your time poorly. Like, you did nothing. With 30 minutes, you did absolutely nothing. Like you said, nothing happened. It was a walking simulator. They walked from point A to point B, said some stuff, then they went from point B to point C, kind of repeated the same stuff. It was just this cyclical garbage. And I was like, I'm not going to pretend like I was expecting to be, immensely entertained with this at all, considering I watched the first 3 episodes. I kind of know what I'm in for. But there was just nothing going on. And they tried all of these little plot devices and things that I was like, I totally see what you're doing there, and it's not working. Like, I don't believe anything that's happening right now on screen. I don't believe these characters. I don't believe their interactions. I certainly don't believe that, like, most of them have some sort of a history together. They don't act like it.
No, I don't want to keep harping on the same point, but it feels like a video game where, like, you're playing Zelda and you're just like, you're trying to learn. Yeah, it's like a silent protagonist style game, and you're just like, but the protagonist isn't quiet. And in 4 episodes within 3 weeks, they even kind of admit, like, she even says in this episode, I'm going to go turn myself into the Jedi and we're going to give up. It's like, the story feels resolved. Like, there's
face turn out of literally nowhere. I put that in my notes. I was like, okay, so random May face turn for no reason. Zero build up to it whatsoever. This entire time, she seemed like she's more or less committed to her mission or whatever from Darth Smiley helmet. And
yeah,
like,
was that?
Dude, that helmet is so bad. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she decides to turn on her buddy, the Ezra Miller-looking guy, and say, I don't have to kill Jedi. I'm going to turn myself in. And I'm like, I can't tell if you're trying to, like, pull one over on your partner or if you're trying to pull one over on the audience. Either way, it's just so inorganic. Like, this feels like Leslie Headland watched a few fictional series at some point in her existence when she wasn't, simping for a grapist, and she was like, oh, I think I remember, like, there was this weird, cool, like, plot twist, and then another plot twist, and I'm just gonna put a bunch of plot twists in this show. But what you're doing is, it's just all those twists are just circling into nowhere other than the drain.
Dude, it was so... I mean, I have notes. Look, folks, let's start off like this. Is it better than last week's episode? Of course. But it's not possible to go bottom of the barrel twice in a row. This is dumb. It would be disingenuous if we tried to scream into the void that this was in every way worse than last week's show.
Oh, yeah. No.
It just wasn't good. Like, there's
boring.
Really weird humor. The little Buzzle character, the tracker, is annoying as shit. Well, okay, he's not really annoying his shit. It's just like he feels
out of place. Bingo. Yeah. Like, he feels... I feel like there's an alternate reality where if they actually gave him some character, imagine characters having character, and put him in a story that had writing, competent writing at that, he might be like some fun little side cutesy character because Star Wars has had that for a long time. Okay, fine. I could relent that, but that's not what they do with him. He's just there and does nothing of value other than like, oh, okay, he's tracking. Then what was it? Jedi freaking haircut. He tries cracking a joke, and this was like the most telegraphed, like bottom of the barrel, dredge, sludge, whatever adjective you want to use, like shell of a Joss Whedon joke is what this felt like. This was like somebody heard a few Joss Whedon jokes in a movie and was like, oh, I can do that. No, you can't. Joss Whedon can't a lot of times, but at least he lands sometimes. This did not land. It was like something like, we need a tracker to track our tracker. Like, am I supposed to be laughing right now?
You're supposed to laugh at jokes or things that are laughably bad.
Show.
Yeah, the show's laughable. Like, there was 7 seconds of action in this episode, and then there was a bunch of lightsabers igniting in the last 5 to 7 seconds. So you got 14 seconds of action, folks. This is all walking, talking. The twist is so lame. Like, Script Doctor called it in the first episode, folks. So here's the spoiler that is not a spoiler. Her little buddy, Jason Mendoza, is the Sith in the helmet. This whole, oh, he owes me, I owe him. It is the lamest twist because it's like he's supposed to be a nefarious Sith Lord. And I get it that he's supposed to play as bumbling. But why would you play as bumbling and accidentally show your cards if you're not, like, he's trying to be menacing to her or bumbling to her to throw her off, but we're supposed to see the menacing side. He's just like, It's like if some guy randomly started, I'm the villain, and then puts on a helmet and fights. You're just like, really, that guy? But Script Doctor saw it at the very beginning of the show, so.
Yeah, and that was a good call. Great call by him because at this point, I think I'm willing to buy that because, and if that's the case too, that is so sad because there's already zero credibility here, right? But they've done nothing to build up this Sith master, if that is in fact what he is, as this menacing figure. I don't believe, like I said, I don't believe any of these characters. There's nothing menacing about him, especially with the goofy ass grin etched into that helmet. What is it? Who approved that? Who was your art director on this show, Leslie?
I wish the people that make Star Wars would stop watching anime. Like, we get it. That's popular around the world, but Star Wars predates a lot of modern shit that you are influenced by. Let's remind ourselves.
A lot of animes were influenced by Star Wars originally.
Most things today are in some way influenced by Star Wars, be it the merchandising, the way things are formulated. Come on now, let's we're on the same page with this one. But that guy, I guess we should just take it back to the beginning because people want to know what's up. So, folks, like we said, it's a nothing episode. They're trying to get the Kofar to get to Kalnaka, and what's her face? Osha doesn't want to. She wants to go home and leave now that she's been cleared. The episode starts with her and the other lady, the white-faced one with the orange hair, going on about like, oh, now that it's over, I can
do little Padawan. Yeah.
I even said like this feels like it feels like the end of the show. Everything feels like resolved. There's nothing left to do. Both characters go, oh, I know you're alive. Oh, you're my other half. I'm going to forget this life of crime, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the Jedi, they're going to arrest you. I'll tell them what I know and we'll live happily ever after. Like, it's all this shit in this episode. You're like,
you literally gave away the most sensible plot for the show right there. And now I'm just not interested in, not that I was really interested in, anything that was really happening to begin with, but now that you've presented me with something that's like, yeah, that seems plausible. I think I buy that. Okay, show's over. Like why am I still here? Aside for y'all's entertainment at my misery.
Folks, all we can say nicely is it ended quickly. It was not very painful, but it was painful, but not for a long period of time. I only took 3 pages of notes because so little happened. Like, I can't stress to you how little happened this week. Much like the first week where we said, oh man, they cut at the worst times. That's what they keep doing. They try to cut at the worst times to get you hooked for next week's show, but you should have had at least 30 more seconds of build or something to get the energy flowing, the heart rate, something like
even more so than that. Like, give us like 5 more. It was only, so if you count the credits, like a 30-minute episode, right? Or just over 30 minutes, but without
like
the
32.
credits, it's like you could have added a few minutes and like tried to make this Sith guy look menacing as he's like facing down all of these Jedi Masters and Knights, blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't have believed you because you've done nothing so far to build him up for me to believe that. But at least you'd give us something happening on the screen. That floating of when he's floating in behind Osha, I was like, oh my gosh, Richard Donner's original Superman film had better flying effects than this.
It just, the way it was shot, man, like she's in focus, he's out of focus, it comes down. They haven't built enough for this guy to be menacing. You saw him on that cliff at the first episode, and then you do another episode without him, and then you do a flashback that's so full of garbage that all the people can talk about is, what are these lesbian space witches? What's the deal with this force birth? Oh, the dark arts and all this shit. Nobody cared about that guy because the show didn't care about that guy. It jumps away from things before the audience can even know what's going on. That's one of the show's biggest faults right there, folks. It's the fact that nobody can sit around and actually, marinate at any point in the story.
Script Doctor, they don't give us an opportunity to pretend that something happened. What's going on, Script?
Oh, I just finished watching that.
I'm sorry. Thoughts and prayers.
Basil the Badger. That was something.
Oh my gosh. He was like a weird hybrid of like a badger and an otter is what he kind of looked like. Yeah. And I was like, what is with current day Lucasfilm and just grabbing any animal that looks like a regular animal and then calling it an alien? Remember, I think it was either the first or second season of Mandalorian, there was some creature sitting in one of the cantinas that was literally just an ant. It was literally just an overgrown ant. And I'm like, what are you doing here? This is an Ant-Man.
Well, to be fair, Star Wars does have a giant praying mantis in it. Like, he's in the cantina with his little arms going like this the whole time.
Yeah,
fair enough.
There's a wolf man and a devil.
Did you see they're making a Wolfman and Devil action figure, but you got to back the HasLab and get it to like whatever?
They're making another set of them. I mean, I have the original from the Powers of the Force collection from way back, but
right now there's a crowdfunder for the Cantina playset, and each tier gives you more figures, and so they're making the Tonica twins and something else.
Oh, geez,
not interested.
Well, I mean, I will say this: there's a lot implied that the so-called master is played by the not Ezra Miller actor.
Oh, Jeff was just bringing that up, but you called that back in the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not the survivor of the temple, one of the moms, it's clearly the guy who I'm gonna go get some more water while you rest. Oh, it's only 10 minutes away. I'm gone for long enough for you to set up a trap, and guess what? There's a lightsaber slice across the Wookiee that you decided how it's impossible to kill or whatever. It's not much of an episode, just overall.
Yep.
No, it's just a bunch of tripe happening on screen or not happening on screen.
They're non-scenes. Like, that's the thing. Like, they're
people are saying words without saying anything.
Yeah. Script, like I was saying a moment ago, or Andrew, you heard me say this, but like I felt like every conversation with Osha was the same conversation with a different character. It's like, we're talking about this, we're talking about this, we're talking about this. Oh,
I can't fight my sister. Oh, I can't fight my sister. Oh, I can't fight my sister. We get it. You don't want to fight your sister. How many people are you going to tell?
Fight her. Like, that's the thing. No one's asked her to fight the sister.
Yeah,
like,
literally just have you there. And that was actually something I put down in my notes. This episode makes the Jedi look very manipulative emotionally. Like, I like Soul, but in that scene where he's like trying to tug on Osha's heartstrings about like having that attachment to her sister, like, you don't want her to come to harm, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, this is some manipulative shit. Yeah. What the hell? Why is this coming out of a Jedi's mouth whom are, like, at this point in the Star Wars timeline, prohibited from attachments. So you're trying to utilize somebody else's attachments to your benefit. That's Sith shit.
Is that going to be the twist? Is that he's the Jedi or the Sith? And this, it'd be terrible if they did that. I see where you're coming from that. They just haven't built to it for me. Things haven't happened enough for me to go, oh, okay, I'm invested. I see this guy one way. Like, they haven't given us the proper build for that. I think the show has
none of these characters are characters. Yeah, there's no substance to these characters. To call them all surface level would be far too generous, honestly.
Well, speaking of characters, people in the chat are saying that Coyote-Mundi, I didn't realize that was supposed to be him. I just thought it was another alien of his race. But yeah, the big tall-headed guy from episodes 1 through 3.
Conehead? Yeah,
Conehead. I don't know his backstory and lore off the top of my head, but I guess he's now in the High Republic era. What do you guys say? It was kind of like a blink and you miss it type of thing, I guess.
It's a member berry, supposedly. And if that is in fact him, like I don't know enough about that specific era or that his race, I should say, rather, to know if they're that long lived, like if they live a couple hundred years or a few hundred years or whatever, if they don't get axed in the Clone Wars. I just don't care because like I saw him and my mind did go to, is that Coyote-Mundi? And then I just kind of moved on with whatever was not happening on screen.
I never invested in prequel stuff. It's like, oh man, there's a callback to the Nemoidians. All right. Oh man, there's a callback to this one. Like, I was a 10-year-old child and I thought that movie sucked. Like, you're not going to pull on my nostalgia heartstrings. I'll just go, show me something else. I don't get what they would do with him in it. Like, what does him being a part of the show benefit anybody? He's just there. Like, the Jedi aren't even doing anything cool. They're just standing around talking. They're training, or they pull out their lightsabers and then the episode ends.
Mm-hmm.
That is what Jedi do. They walk around. They take it back. They fought a giant space cicada. That was cool. But it was literally 7 seconds of a scene. That was it.
Yeah, Soul just, like, slashes it in half. Done.
It's not very Jedi-like behavior either. It's like you just killed an animal, another creature. Why don't you just, like, force push it away or make it fall asleep or something?
Didn't you hear that fucked up line? It's a great honor to watch become one with the Force. When did the Jedi talk like that?
That has not been a thing. Like, not in that essence, not within the framework of it became one with the Force because you killed it. Like, and not that I'm gonna cry about the big flying bug thing getting killed. I don't care. But that's not a Jedi line. And that just speaks once again to the fact that these people, Leslie Headland and other writers like her, writers being extremely generous, they don't know what a hero looks like. They have no clue what good guys look like. They don't know what they sound like. They don't know how they walk. They don't know how they talk. They don't know what their general actions are in any given circumstance. So they just have them do stuff. This is why going back to things like the freaking Captain Marvel show or like the Miss Marvel comics, Stretchy Hands McGee, not Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, like where they do stuff that it's villain stuff. And we're just supposed to go along with it as though they're the good guy and have some moral authority here. They don't know what morality looks like because they have none. They're bereft of it. And if you don't have morality, you certainly are not in a position to preach to people morality. And you definitely are not going to be able to organically and believably write things regarding morality.
No. Sorry. By the way, folks, if it looks like I'm melting, I am melting. My place has air, but it's also 90 degrees inside my apartment, so no jacket tonight, folks. Just the Wokebuster shirt, but could use your help getting that across its goal. So if you go to Kickstarter, check out Wokebusters. We got more than half of the campaign left, and you're going to start seeing me in some really cool places. But spread the word, help us blow past this goal. You'll be seeing me next week. I'll be on the side scrollers and a whole lot more. So find out where else you can find me. And thanks to all the people who have backed it and all the people who are excited. I get nice emails now. Like before, people would send like shitty emails about stuff, but now this guy's been like messaging me back and forth about how he's excited about the story, asking questions. To that dude, if you're watching currently, thanks, man. I don't want to say your real name, but I appreciate all the interest in the project. I can't wait to bring it to you.
That's
well,
so
folks,
exciting, man.
You were the first backer, so thank you. I looked at the list. I look at every person, every dollar, everything we make. I'm grateful for it. But I'm not taking anything for granted, man. So I appreciate the hell out of you, and I can't wait to sign it to you personally, so you can, have your. You'll be the first. You'll be the first person to get it because you're the first person to back it. So, well,
heck yeah.
Too bad you won't get one of those limited numbered versions that the other people are getting, but maybe yours will fall off the truck and you'll get one in addition to that. I don't know. That's will be bad.
Well, I can shoot up a prayer.
Yeah. But all joking aside, folks, thank you for everybody so far. Let's cross that goal. Now, we're not done talking about the Acolyte at all. Don't mistake that. I know people for 3 seconds are like, oh my God, they're not talking about it. Well, we're about to talk to you guys right now about the Acolyte because Shrebels 08, the word of the day is Dyke. The Acolyte at Tale of Two Dykes. How Stella got her Dyke back. Yeah. It's Star Wars Revenge of the Three Dykes and Live and Let Dyke. I would make that no, I wouldn't make that comic book, but I would read that comic book, Live and Let Dyke. I'm just putting it out there. It'd be like the Buffalo Gals and Cow and Chicken.
Dyke hard.
That's great.
That's
Dyke hard with a vengeance.
That's the best one.
I mean, there is a really high percentage of domestic violence in that.
I wasn't going to go there, but I read through the lines, or between lines, excuse me. I knew what you were saying.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
I get you, brother. I'm just melting. Sorry if I look terrible, folks. Oh,
you're good, man.
I empathize, dude. It's 77 Fahrenheit where I am with the air conditioning on. So if it's 90 where you are, that's
yeah.
I've got my apartment at a cool 69 right now.
I would love to keep. I had my air on at 65. I was like, let's keep it really cold for this heat wave, and then they're like, you need to put it up because the temperature differential's too great, and it'll just run hot. I'm like, fuck, it's true. So
yeah.
See, folks, I spent more time talking about melting than other stuff. Let's get back to the Acolyte. Let's see, the Dyke-tastic 4. Does that count? Since we're talking about,
4? I mean, maybe. I know that they're. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with that movie at this point. And I don't really care at this point either. The MCU is so long gone for me.
The Invincible Iron Dyke, is that too much?
I mean, did they do that with Riri in the comics? I can't keep up with all the people that they queer wash these days.
Buddy, I've never even read a Riri Williams comic book because I have better things to do, like make my own books, or I don't know, read classics like this Spider-Man book, or I even got into this weird German shit because I speak German mildly. And so I bought this Asterix book, and I'm trying to see if I can get through the story with the knowledge I have of German. And it's just kind of like a fun, weird thing I did.
Nice.
I highly recommend you read Asterix, folks, if you haven't checked it out. It's a lot of fun. Different art styles. I like it. Neil Lowry. Thank you very much, Neil. The Sith are going to be a chick who digs chicks. I'm with Script Doctor's initial prediction. It's Jason Mendoza from The Good Place. That's the Sith Lord. Like, I didn't like how he was written. Like I said before you got here, Script. Excuse me. I thought his bumbling when they were walking up that hill was a little too on the nose.
Yeah, it felt too forced.
Yeah. And the thing is, why it felt too forced is, how does May not see through it? If she's having all these revelations in her head and 10 minutes later she'd go, I'm going to turn myself in. It's just stupid that she's that poorly written of a character to not see through that. If the audience is just like, wait, what? That's so obvious. And you've been calling it since the beginning. So that pisses me off, but that's who I think is the Sith. And this isn't Knives Out. Like, is this Rian Johnson's Star Wars secretly? Because this is like Knives Out. Glass Onion, a Knives Out murder mystery, whatever. We're going to get Daniel Craig at the end of the season. Who killed May, or who killed the mom, or whatever. And that's all it's going to be. It's going to be fucking Daniel Craig wrapping it up in a nice package.
Like, you can tell that story, not the Daniel Craig thing. I'm sure a competent writer could probably make that semi-work. But you can tell a story of having, like, the big bad actually be, like, this sleeper agent type of a character is normally unassuming, but you have to build towards that, and you have to have narrative beats that will ultimately make that reveal believable for your audience. If you don't hit those narrative beats and don't do the requisite work to make that character believable in that reveal, you haven't done your job. You have no idea what you're doing. And that's the case here so far. Like, I've been a part of a zillion D&D campaigns with very competent DMs who are actually competent writers and have done things like that in the story. And some of us in the group would be like, I'm kind of sus on this person, but I can't quite put my finger on it yet because it's still like I'm still believing you. And then they reveal it and they do it in a really well done organic manner. And you're like, how did I not see that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what's happening.
I mean, I am really hoping that it's not him. But the other part too, and this is where I think the shoe might drop, is that guy going to be revealed as Darth Plagueis?
Well, he can't be because he's not a freaking oh my gosh, why is the name of the race escaping me right now?
Well, see, you're under the presupposition that they're going to acknowledge that, given the fact that everything is Legends now.
Fair enough, but that would annoy, I think, those of us who are EU fans even more. It's like, so not only did you change Plagueis's race, but you also just made him a poorly written character. He's a fantastic character.
Or if he's not Plagueis, he's either the young Palpatine, which I'm like, well, how did he change race again? Or he's Snoke. And then you're just going into bigger circles. And it's like, how are they going to drop this harder to make it literally like the worst of worst Star Wars shows?
Yeah, and that's not hyperbole, guys. Like, we talk all the time on this show about like not buying into the hyperbole, not buying into the hype. When we're saying this is actually just that atrocious, it is. There's nothing redeemable about this show. Like, I can't even... Last Jedi at least had stuff that I could credit it from a cinematography perspective, and it had like some really cool set pieces. Its story was crap, its characters were crap, but like there are things that I could be like, okay, yeah, that was cool, right? Or that worked well.
We had a great moment when Holdo died. We all cheered. It was great. When Rose Tico crashed that car, like the Last Jedi has unintentionally great moments. Like, I'll never forget, I had a stream years ago with Razor Fist, Retro Blastin', and a couple other people. And like Razor Fist made a joke about why is the Asian chick the one who can't drive, and like people got so offended. I thought it was the funniest shit.
She's also the one that kamikazes the ship.
Yep. I also Disney. The thing about Disney diversity is Disney plays into all the stereotypes. They just do it in a different way. It's like the black dude's into the Asian girl, or he's chasing after the white woman. It's like, oh, and then we got to do this and do that. I get it. Like, you're trying to be a different, more progressive Star Wars, but you can't be more progressive when Star Wars kind of was already. Like, sorry that
we had everything already.
They didn't have modern day politics with people running around going, isn't it so great? No, because people don't act like that. A small fraction of people throughout history act like this, and now they're here. They have the power to do something, and they're fucking it up because
now they're in charge.
People.
Well, now we learned that Rose Tico's a mechanic.
Like, not a mechanic.
So unbelievably like bereft of creativity.
Would you guys believe me if I told you I actually had a clip from next week's Acolyte that shows you who the Sith is? I got it from a friend. Would you like to see it?
Sure.
Let's see it.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch!
I wish that would be the episode.
That's a better reveal. It's a better reveal. Yeah. Better writing.
Oh, and you know, the higher power is like the worst in wrestling history, and I'm agreeing with you about how it's better than this. See, folks, Andrew said that The Last Jedi is better. The thing is, stuff happens in The Last Jedi. Stuff happens in these other shows to talk about. It's not even about needing to tear stuff apart. That's not what we do. We just happen to talk about shit that we like in general. I praise tons of stuff on this show, but the Star Wars stuff hasn't been up to standard in, God, almost a decade at this point. So let's remember that we do look at these things for substance. We're very disappointed that there is no substance. So
there's nothing to sink our teeth into with this show. Like, this is you are biting into not even somebody who is should be under the prison and cooked their steak well done, but there's just nothing on it. It's just bone.
Dude, it is the charred remains of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Oh, that's an image.
Well, at least there's an emotion connected to that.
Right. I don't care when anybody dies in this show, and I don't see how I'm supposed to. Like, I don't care about these Jedi that you're killing off because you haven't endeared them to us.
Yeah, none of these characters have real emotions. The Jedi are emotionless, whatever, and I don't like that version of the Jedi. I like Luke Skywalker being a guy because I don't want to be a priest or a monk. I don't want to be celibate. I don't want to hang around a temple and pray all day. Like, they made a Jedi the least attractive thing in the world as a kid. Like, when episode 1 came out, they're just like, oh, we're going to do this and do that. And I'm like, that's a Jedi? Like, lightsabers are bitching. But what happened to the cool part? Like,
where's the tongue-in-cheek aspect of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, and unfortunately, I'll have to blame the EU for this, but the EU made Luke a very passive, docile character in conversion over the course of, many books. It's not like one particular writer, but I think Lucas felt like I should make the Jedi more monks. And so the EU writers were like, okay, well, if that's the mandate, I will make them more passive, more somber, he won't make him the Luke Skywalker who at the end, after, setting fire to his father's corpse and going back to meet his friends, he's got this big smile on his face. He's happy. He's shaking hands. He's very human and emotional. And they're like, yeah, that's not the Jedi anymore. And that's not going to be Luke anymore either. And it's like, well, that just betrays the character we just saw, because the whole idea is the fact that the Jedi are very human people that they make jokes. They are wise. They have fun. Even Yoda, even when he's teaching, there's a little bit of humor in there, but it's not the guys that he's doing when he first meets Luke. That's him like dialed up to 100. But the thing is, they're not supposed to be these, a celibate looking emotionless drones. I mean, I hated that the oath of the Force of the Jedi, which is there's no emotion, there's only the Force. I'm like, screw you, man. No, that's BS. That's just trying to take, the Sith and their whole anger, fear, aggression stuff and saying, well, it's not just anger, fear, aggression. It's all the spectrums of the emotions, and they're all bad. And a Jedi has to purge himself of that, be a pseudo Vulcan of sorts from another franchise. And it's like, well, that doesn't feel authentic. And I mean, the only highlights you get against that are in some of the comic books and in some of the novels where they decide, yeah, we're not going to make Luke sound like that. We're going to make him kind of have a little bit of fun. We're going to make him, force project another image over himself to mess with Han for a second while they're going on a mission, and then be like, yeah, it's just me, having fun with the Force to better keep up the mystique so people don't realize that Luke Skywalker is in front of them. Where's that stuff and where's that mentality with the other Jedi that we are introduced to throughout the rest of the franchise? They're not there. They all feel they all feel like one type of character that's just got a different, veneer or appearance on either one.
Dude, it's like a video game. It's just a different skin. That's all. Like,
yeah.
They don't even have different powers or different, like, I'm sure, I know there are different fighting styles, but I kind of live by the rule of thumb. What is in the movie is what I live by and go by. I get it. Obi-Wan uses one style and so uses the other. That's cool. It adds a little more to it. All I'm saying is, they're so similar. Like, oh man, he hooked his arm this way and went that way. It's like, okay, it's still a dude in a beige colored robe and a brown cloak, and they just stand there. Like, they're really boring characters. I can't believe Star Wars is this boring. Like, as a kid, I would always critique Star Trek. Star Trek's boring. Star Trek's lame. They just stand around and talk. This is like 6-year-old me.
Mm-hmm.
I like Star Trek. I get it. They're talking about humanity. They're talking about stuff that you couldn't talk about on TV in an interesting way, or you're just telling good, unique stories. There's a reason why Spock is the way he is. He's a Vulcan. I get all that stuff. It's cool. It's a different race. But with Star Wars, like, these are just normal people, essentially. Most part, they're people. Saul comes from this planet, and Yord comes from that. But they're just dudes. Like, they're just.
But the thing is, where's the cultural differences among the Jedi that they adopt? Because here's the problem that you have with, the whole, well, if we learned that they were, Force sensitive as a baby, would have brought them into the Jedi. It's like, well, now we've created a different culture. You've created a culture of Jedi as opposed to a bunch of species that have their own culture that also happen to have learned the Force and became Jedi. So what about Ki-Adi-Mundi's species would make him an interesting Jedi that separates him from all the others aside from his appearance? Why is it we don't see a Wookiee Jedi that, has Wookiee, like we saw Wookiee Jedi, he's wearing Jedi robes. Why? Wookiees don't need to wear clothes. They're already covered in fur and they're kept warm and climate. And also, how do they behave differently than other Jedi? Because Wookiees have a different culture. And, on the surface, for some of the audience, you might be saying, well, you're just talking about diversity. It's like, I'm talking about authentic diversity. The whole idea is that, you've got all these different species, these different cultures that they're experiencing, and they've come together to become a Jedi so that, if we do go to Kashyyyk, what are the customs there? Well, the Wookiee Jedi will know. They will inform us so that we don't offend anybody or we don't cause a war or something of that nature, and we see that world. We never get those opportunities with current day Star Wars.
No, we don't. We get disappointment. We get boredom. We get the green lady who can't act to save her life. Like
the one that's named after vaginal cream, Canestra.
We get. I wanted to take a nap during this episode.
I almost did, but it was a much shorter episode than the previous 3. So,
well,
yeah, it was, and they wasted any of the screen time that they had.
We've now gone longer than the episode itself. That's the thing. We have gone longer than the episode. It is a nothing burger, folks. Like, here's the thing. You don't need to watch this one. You could just not watch it and then don't watch the show. That's why you watch us. But my point is, if you watch the previously on the Acolyte 5-second or 10-second snippet that plays before the episode, you'll get everything in this episode. I mean, you could fit all of the action scenes in that small snippet, but it's literally, they're here. Osha's going to leave. They are going to go to Kofar. May's on Kofar. May. And then they all go to Kofar. They walk across the planet. The other ones walk across the jungle. They eventually get to the same point at the same time. And then it ends. Like, you're like, okay, that's it.
Another useless cliffhanger that wasn't earned. It was not an earned cliffhanger because there was nothing that built up to that moment for that cliffhanger to leave you like, oh, snap. Right? It was just like, hey, nothing happened this entire episode, and now something happens for 4 seconds. And
it's among like 10 Jedi, right? Like, there's how many Jedi are with them aside from like Saul, his
I think there was something like 7 or 8 of them.
There's this whole group of Jedi. I'm like, wow, you're really investing a lot of Jedi in this one search mission. And then the other part too is like, none of you have access to a speeder bike, or why don't you just, hey, if we know where it is, why don't we just hover our ship above and then send down some lines that we can rappel down and beat everyone there as opposed to go on foot. It's just silly.
Now let's check in with the audience because we're getting clarification. That was Kaya Mundi, and apparently he wasn't born yet. So they don't care. Here's the thing. They don't, like Kathleen Kennedy,
they don't care.
We don't have books or anything we can reference. Oh, I guess you don't even have a reference book to look like, let's use this character. He wouldn't
my shelves and my Audible account tell a different story.
Yeah.
I've got the original Star Wars, the Essential Guide to Star Wars Characters from like 95, digital and physical.
That was a good book. I used to love those technical journals that came out too.
Yeah. I've got the one with all the starships, including like the ground vehicles. That's my first introduction to the Eclipse Star Destroyer before I read it in one of the books.
I had access to all those books in grade school because I think I read Sci-Fi magazine and they had like a little thing where you could mail away for it. And I didn't, but then they were at my school book fair and I got some Star Wars scrapbooks and some other like technical books. I used to read the shit out of those, like the specs of the shuttle Tidarium. You're like, cool. I loved it. Now what the fuck happened to Star Wars?
Disney bought it.
I know. God, it sucks. I watched a whole video on Touchstone Pictures and how Disney used to take a gamble with Touchstone and they made all these classic films. And then you're like, oh, they buy up everything and ruin it now. They used to try. Like I've said before on the channel, folks, when Disney is at its worst, entertainment is at its best. So yeah, that's how it always goes. Overkill 161, thank you, says it sounds like that cheesy Ewok cartoon from the 80s had better character development than this show. Yes.
I won't stretch the truth and say that was a good show, but I'll at least say that stuff happened.
Yeah.
Nothing of any measure has happened in this show.
The 22 minutes of the 1980s cartoon was more exciting than the 32 minutes of the 2024 live action show with how many? What is this? An $18 million episode?
Yeah, where did that money go?
That's the thing. Like, I've heard so many people talk about the budget for the show, and it doesn't show it. There's no evidence anywhere.
I have a theory.
Not in the acting, not in the VFX, not in the nothing. This show did not earn its budget at all.
I think it's just the cost of the production stuff. Like they owe like the creature with all this fur and all this stuff. Like I bet that shit costs so much more than we realize, and it stretches out across the whole show for the effects budget. Because
I imagine that the price tag came higher than what was actually spent on it. Because I don't know if you've been following the Crystal Lake story over at Peacock, but it's the companion television series to the Friday the 13th film franchise that Brian Fuller is doing. And we've just learned from a Wrap article that A24 refused to honor their part of the agreement by converting the development room into a writer's room. So they haven't purchased any of the scripts. And they're claiming that the $85 million they had for the season budget of 8 episodes, that the product that they had so far was 100% over budget. So it was double that, which doesn't make sense because they haven't spent anything yet. So what we're learning is that it seems to be that A24 is trying to take around 50% of the $85 million that Peacock gave to them to produce this show and keep it for themselves and try and produce the 8 episodes on half of that. And this is the same type of budgeting styles that I've seen with J.J. Abrams and his Star Trek and what he did with Star Wars. And I feel like this is what Disney has been doing ever since they got into bed with J.J. way back when, because it's the only explanation as to why we're seeing these inflated budgets, yet nothing of that dollar amount is reflected on the screen. It means that the studios or these entities that are being hired by the studios are taking as much as they can up front, pocketing it from themselves, qualifying it as certain types of expenditures, and then whatever is left over is going into the show or movie that we see and rightfully complain and question where is the dollar amount on the screen.
You can't keep doing this with a science fiction show or a space fantasy show like Star Wars. It's gotta deliver, man. It just has to, and all the wire foo in the world doesn't make up for the fact that the show is poorly written.
Bad flying VFX.
Oh, like I get that not everybody liked The Mandalorian, but just to compare apples to apples, I can't believe that at one point in time Disney put that much effort into one of their shows.
Right? It had a lot of solid practical effects. The CGI that was used wasn't spectacular or mind-blowing, but it was passable at least, right?
It looked like a Star Wars movie. It looked kind of like the prequels. The CGI in those movies aren't that great, and they never were that great. Even back in the day, you're just like, oh, okay, the creature's fake. That's cool. It looks neat, but you could also tell it looked fake. And so, Mandalorian to me matched up with Disney or with Star Wars in general. I won't say happy with the show because we're also dealing with the rise of Skywalker at the same time, but I was very surprised with what they put on TV. And then I'm not surprised, though, with The Acolyte because of what they put on TV now that they find acceptable. I wonder how much of it is a money thing, because I don't believe anybody goes in like, we're going to make it intentionally worse. We're going to ruin it to piss off the fans. Like, I think they just are really bad at what they do, and it's embarrassing at this point.
They're
Two
little
things can be true at once.
They're delusional and they're out of sync with any general audience. They're also so preoccupied with just trying to be cutting edge and doing something different to stand apart from all the other stuff, to not be as conventional or contemporary, that they end up taking these risks without actually thinking about the consequences of those actions. I mean, listen, I actually criticized the very first episode of The Mandalorian because I said you waste 6 to 10 minutes on The Mandalorian training to ride a blur in your premiere show, your premiere episode. That is such a waste of time and money, and there's no payoff to it. And from my perspective, like, it was a peaks and valleys with regards to the quality of that first season. And then the same thing with the second season. I still haven't finished my review for the last episode of season 2 that features, not Luke Skywalker, because it's such a horrible, I mean, it's fairly well directed, but it's such a horribly written episode because they literally contradict themselves within the first scene where they say, oh, our comms are down. Then over the comms, Mandalorian says, prepare to be boarded. Well, how could they hear that if their comms are down?
I completely forgot about that. Much like I forgot about him writing the creature in the first episode. I only watched him once. Honestly, I was just like, oh yeah, this was cooler than I expected this. I got that, and I was just okay. It's still fine. It's what it is. Our reviews are all out there, folks. I can't recall what I gave a score of 5 years ago on something, but we did talk about it. It just what is next? Like, if this were to continue to degrade at this level, like, are we ever going to get a Star Wars show that's just a sitcom? Like, maybe out the window is like space and shit, but it's just like people in a bar talking and drinking. It's like The Office in space or something. Like, is that what the budgets are going to be? Don't give them good ideas, because like if it's down on the lower levels, and you said it during
you
the
could do that
Star
with
Wars
like
series, that'd be
you
cool.
could do that with like Smugglers or something like that, and probably a competent writer could make that entertaining at the very least.
Well,
I know a
an
guy that
episode or
wrote a
two.
Smugglers pilot for Star Wars. It was a spec. He never gave it to anyone at Lucasfilm, but he sent it over to like Paramount and Universal. It's pretty good, actually. It's got actually probably one of the coolest Jedi scenes I've ever read in a screenplay. But yeah, like there's listen, Disney's not going to change so long as Bob Iger and all of his ilk are there. That's just the sad truth of the matter. So we're going to get more of the same. The only slightly possible positive news we have is that Marvel Studios has fired 15 activist producers and is going to push out the crap that they've already been committed to. And after that's done, we might, I'm not holding my breath, but we might get back to form.
Right, but it's too little too late, I think, for a lot of people. And I try to take each project at face value and go in with as open a mind as I possibly can, within reason. Like, you can, fool me once / fool me twice type of a deal, right? But I still try to be as objective as I can be when I'm consuming something, so that my integrity, not because I give a crap about the show, but because I want my integrity to not be able to be called into question. Right. So I want to be objective about the way I critique things. That being said, most normal people, like, you can only get one over on them so many times before they tune out. The apathy is set in. I remember, I mean, we've had this argument before, Script, but in talking about like quality, well-structured writing, yada yada, all of this, Andor, as I understand, is exactly that. Nobody watched it. Nobody cared, because that apathy is set in. You disrespected people's intelligence and them as fans far too many times. And so now, in order to build back that goodwill, it would take just almost an insurmountable number of bang on projects, not like mediocre, not like, oh, well, at least that was better than The Acolyte, or at least that was better than Rise of Skywalker. No,
it's not enough.
Mediocre isn't good enough. You need to have bangers. You need to have something that's like, holy crap, that was so good. And then you go tell your friends, you tell your parents, your family, whatever, and then word of mouth eventually spreads. And if you are consistent enough with that, then you have a chance of building back some of that audience goodwill. But that takes so much time. You can destroy a brand really quickly. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can destroy it really quickly. It takes way longer to repair it.
Yes, that's true. But that's also why no franchise ever really stays dead in Hollywood, because all it takes is time, effort, and conveying to your audience that this is the level of quality you're going to get. And if they keep coming back for it, they will keep going. I mean, take a look at the Transformers series. That hasn't stopped since it started in 2007?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I would argue that every single one of those movies is garbage, but fans keep showing up.
Some of them are fun enough popcorn flicks, but they're not particularly high quality.
No, exactly.
Yeah. What is it? Not Skybound. Sky something is putting out. No, not a studio. It's a smaller comic book publisher is putting out. Apparently, I haven't read it. Like, real bangers of Transformers comics right now. I haven't read them. I'm not that big of a Transformers guy. I was more of a TMNT guy when I was a kid. But
yeah, Transformers were really before our time, man. I know we're born in the 80s, but I'm pretty sure Transformers ended in 1987, and then there was Gen 2 in...
Right, and we were born in 88, so it's like...
Yeah. It's like He-Man, Transformers, and G.I. Joe all ended right when we were born, and we grew up in a Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers superhero era where those 80s cartoons were not referenced. They were not mentioned. I didn't see reruns of this shit because there was so much new stuff with Fox Kids and WB. Like, I'm glad that's the thing. Like, they're huge. You can't deny it. I have friends with a lot of guys like Articulated Chad, who's a huge Joe fan. I mean, there's a huge legion of people out there. Same with He-Man. They've got conventions that are dedicated to this shit. It's awesome. Yep. I just, I'm a little late. I got superheroes. That's my shit. Well, other stuff.
Well, I was fortunate that like the networks that I had access to as a kid, because I was born in '84, we saw all those shows in syndication right up to the end of the 90s, in addition to the new stuff as well. So you have the Fox Kids at Saturday morning from like 7 to 11. And then you flip over to one of the more local affiliates, and then it's like there's your He-Man, there's your She-Ra, there's your G.I. Joe, there's your Transformers, all original runs, right off there till like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday, and then that was it. That was what you would watch, and that was pretty cool because you got a whole slew of stuff. But the other part too is like I used to get to see Rocky and Bullwinkle, which that show aired.
I used to watch reruns of that
decades before I was born.
I would watch reruns of that and Tom and Jerry and stuff.
That was on Nickelodeon though, dude. They would show Rocky and Bullwinkle on Nickelodeon. I loved that.
Yeah, we also got like Speed Racer and the classic, obviously the classic Spider-Man and all of those cartoon shows because they were just, it was part of the syndication thing. Like everything that was no longer on the air, broadcast from the 60s, 70s, was coming back in the 80s and 90s.
There was a window of time when we were more or less all kids where, like, just to your point, Script, they were airing stuff that was not only like new then, but it was also new like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years prior. And we just had this huge, diverse swath of shows that we could watch. It was just like you could get a little bit of everything. It was fantastic, man. I feel spoiled now compared to kids these days. Like I look at the crap that kids are watching, even like 5, 6, 7 years ago, Steven Universe and Adventure Time,
what
and things
was
like
that
this.
Show?
And I'm like, dude, what is this retarded shit that kids are consuming right now? Like I had awesome cartoons. Your childhood sucks.
I think these shows lack conflict, and people don't know how to deal with real conflict because their shows are so soft. It's like, let's just all be friends. It's like we had there were the Care Bears in the 80s, and then you made fun of the Care Bears in the 90s because everyone realized what saccharine bullshit that was. Now you have another decade of those people going, let's make something like that. It's positive. I was bullied as a kid. Everybody was treated like shit as a kid. Everybody.
Dude, I was picked on relentlessly when I was a kid. It's one of the reasons why I got into superheroes.
People gave me shit because of the way I looked. I just didn't really give a crap. And no, in Wokebusters, I don't go beat up my bullies or some dumb shit like that. I would never see. That's the difference between me. I may like put myself in it in a way, but it's not about that. Like we kidnapped Harrison Ford as a joke, but this isn't, my stuff isn't like my personal issues or my foibles or my, my relationship with X, Y, and Z. Who cares? Like, you want to read something fun and engaging. That's what people want out of Star Wars. That's what we want out of this stuff. We've seen the story of twins in Star Wars. We don't need to see it again. I don't care what pitch you gave Kathleen Kennedy in an elevator. I don't care. It wasn't
made her cry, dude. Made her cry. Brought her to tears. Such raw, genuine, organic emotion. I'm sure she was just weeping.
It is what it is, bro. I'm gonna read
this show makes my freaking intellect weep.
I had a really nice day. I got up, I wrote a really cool email for the book. Like, I'm turning it into a short now, getting a narrator for Initiative Cleanup Portland. See, folks, there's a nefarious government twist to my Wokebusters book. It's not about what you think it's about. But anyway, long story short, I was so happy today. I bought a steak at Kroger. I had a good dinner. And then about 7:45, I was like, oh man, the Acolyte's on soon. So I thought, I'm gonna cleanse my palate. So I turned on my favorite game, GoldenEye. I played through Facility. Then I put on the new wrestling game and played a match as The Rock and laid the SmackDown. I was in a great mood. And then the Acolyte comes on and just ruins everything. It is so... It's like you're going to the dentist and you got a cavity and you're like, all right, they're going to pull my tooth. fuck, it's gonna hurt. Like I know every week, man, this show is just it's appointment painful dentistry.
This show is like this show is like that person. Everybody, I think, here knows one where they just suck all of the air out of the room the second they open their trap. That's what this show is. It sucks the joy out of things. Like last week, I wasn't kidding when I said, after this show, I'm going to enjoy some good Star Wars. Like I'm going to play Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor and listen to one of my EU audiobooks. And then I'm going to go to bed because I want to stop thinking about watching the show. And that's what it's going to be again this week. Like I'm just going to push through and then try to forget it ever happened, because it's that miserable individual that takes the joy out of life for everyone that they're around.
I'm going out of town to a con this weekend. Like I'm trying to get myself in the right.
You're gonna have a great time, man.
Yeah, I got invited to what was it, Liberty Con? I got invited to that by a company, so that's cool. I got some cool stuff behind the scenes, folks. Check us out in the future as well. Shrubbles await, says Darth Plagueis the Dyke. I'll take an Uncle Ben and another one, please. Of course, Shrubbles await. Ask and you shall receive. Let's get you your buttons lined up right now. Yes, our pal DJ Khaled is back again and again with another one and another one and
another one. Another one. Another one. Another one. Another one.
I never feel bad about that guy getting lit up.
Folks, if you want to laugh at that guy getting lit up, go to shopwcbs.com. We got that t-shirt for you right now. Shopwcbs.com is powered by Teespring, so it'll get shipped directly to you right away, folks. But features some of my art, like most of the stuff on the channel, including the faces you see behind us. Now, there'll be more of those faces as we click over here, so we can give our friend Troubles08 the other button he requested right here.
Who's that Pokemon? It's
Uncle Ben.
I love that button. Thank you, Troubles08, for letting us press it for you right now. I always want to watch Spider-Man. I always want to watch not always want to watch Pokemon. I like to watch stuff from when I was a kid every once in a while. It's fun. But I always want to watch that first Spider-Man movie, but that scene's always awkward. Like, not awkward, but not hard to watch. But I always feel bad. I'm like, oh man, the last thing he says to Uncle Ben is, "You're not my father. Stop trying to pretend to be." I'm like, oof, very poor choice of words for the last thing you say.
Bad choice of words.
I like that they see today they don't put that kind of guilt on a character. They don't let a character like really have something like, I'm talking like mainstream superhero-y shit. Look, there are movies out there that do that. I'm not acting like every movie out there is bereft of something. I did walk out of a movie yesterday, The Bike Riders, but that's a topic for another day. But I want like that level of depth to be brought into like basic entertainment like this, because I do believe that even if people watch mindless crap, if it has some kind of value to it, it helps. And I'm not saying it needs to teach like religion or a moral or something like that, but like I said earlier, our shows all had conflict as kids. You know, it could be Recess, it could be Pepper Ann, it could be Spider-Man, it could be Power Rangers. That was about internet or, you know, multi-planet, interplanetary conflict. It could be like that. But it was still about how to overcome adversity. It does teach you a good message because it teaches you like not to give up or how to be creative or how to do these different things out there that are really important for entertainment. And we're not talking like you need a PBS learning hour, but you just, anything could teach you something. I mean, hell, even Bob Ross had good shit in it.
Well, that just goes back to talented writers that actually understand morality and universal lessons that anybody can latch onto. That's why Spider-Man's so beloved, because he experiences things that literally anybody can go through. It doesn't matter if you're not a white male. You can be a chick. You can be a black dude. You can be an Asian dude. It doesn't matter. There are universal truths that are presented. And this used to be commonplace in our media, in our fiction. That's how a lot of us grew up, with these characters that had a far stronger moral fiber and moral foundation, because they were being written, for the most part, by people that at least could fake that. Right? Like, obviously, there are individuals that, you know, time passes, things come out. It's like, oh, that person was actually a POS behind the scenes, but they still managed to write this story and lead me to believe that they had some level of moral fiber to them, right? And moral fortitude. We don't have that now. Now we just have people that have no idea what morality looks like. And that's why all of these characters act like villains.
Because I think they're very angry people, and they have to find a different outlet for their issues, not our entertainment. Because the thing is, people want to be understanding to other people. People want to be, whatever. But when you're bringing us something through a television screen, or you're bringing us something through a phone or something else, it's a lot harder to convey that emotion. It's a lot harder to get that across to people. And these people put so much of their own personal shit, and everybody reacts like so violently that we all kind of make fun of how they react, but they can't stop reacting that way. Like, did Jon Favreau ever whine about the Mandalorian? I'm sorry, what was that script?
It's a vicarious attitude towards their fiction. They're taking their fantasy element. They're like saying, well, this is what I wish would really happen, so I will write it, and I will live vicariously through that. And any judgment that is from that, I will be shielded from, because I can just ignore them for being trolls. And I can let the media incite the fire, and they can call them all the nasty stuff, and I don't have to say it because the media is doing it for me.
And you have these, that's such a good bring. These people, writers, again, very liberal use of that term, the self-insertion is being done by people who themselves, like you said, they are putting themselves in this story and then telling that story. They're telling the story of what they would do if they were that character. And the fact of the matter is, that human being, the real person that's writing it, is not a likable individual. They have no redeeming qualities about them, certainly nothing that comes through their writing. And therefore, we view the character that is supposed to be them as exactly that. It's like, okay, so you're not a likable person. There's nothing interesting or redeeming about you. You put yourself in this story and made this character effectively you. Ergo, this is not a likable character or redeemable character.
No.
And there's no one around with authority to say, hey, why don't we try making this person more accessible? Like, no, not necessarily likable. Let's understand where they're coming from a little bit better. Because that's your first step towards likability. I mean, listen, look at the main character of Falling Down, right?
Yeah.
Great movie.
Great Michael Douglas film.
Not a likable character, but you understand where he's coming from, and then you see at the end why that, oh yeah, I am kind of a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great movie. Gosh,
I can't believe Joel Schumacher directed that.
I can. Joel Schumacher's a really good director.
I know.
He has too much to Akiva Goldsman's Oscar. And what bad Warner Brothers head at the time was saying, well, we need to sell toys, and this is a comic book movie. And no, you don't get to do the stuff you did with Lost Boys or Falling Down or Phone, or like you hadn't done Phone Booth yet. But it's like, no, you don't get that stuff. And I will say this, Batman Forever was way ahead of its time, because the box that the Riddler makes, that's social media. And all the data collection is Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. It's just
or just the NSA.
It's just through a TV instead of through a computer screen. And
I don't dislike Batman Forever at all. I think most people mistake it for Batman and Robin, and they don't even give it the amount of time. You go,
I even have redeeming things when it comes to Batman and Robin, just because it's not a great film. It's not even really a good film, but it has things when I get to that scene, I will laugh every single time. Every single time Arnold, Mr. Freeze is and anytime Mr. Freeze is making the ice and the cold puns, I'm like, I am so here for this. This was formative for me. This is why I'm the way that I am.
Bro, I saw that movie in theaters, and I was so excited because I watched Batman Forever all the time, folks. When Batman Forever
had the Batmobile, I had an RC car of it.
Dude, I had Batman, Robin, the Batmobile, the Batcave. I had a little bat signal flashlight. I even had a CD single of the U2 song. Like, I was hardcore into that movie. And
that music video was actually really good too.
Oh, with the comic book shit, yeah.
And my girlfriend loved the Seal song. I mean, listen, you find any girl you play that song. Which didn't even come out, which came out years before Batman Forever, but Joel Schumacher liked it. He put it on the soundtrack. And they redid a music video for it. And that got him Heidi Klum. So
Have you ever
Good on
gone
him.
back to look at that music video though? How like unintentionally hilarious it is, because there's this shot they show of Batman and they freeze frame it, but he like turns his head and he goes like that, and he looks like the Pete Holmes meme. And I'm just like, every time I watch that video, I can't not crack up because it's such a dramatic song. I like the song quite a bit, and then it's just, and you're like, what the fuck? And I just every time it makes me laugh.
Yep.
But Andrew, Batman, I'll just say this. Anytime he pulls out the credit card and it says expiration date forever, it's like that was a good one. Like everybody can get one. Like that was a really good one. Don't leave the cave without it. I'm like, fuck, man.
I will say this though, like the one thing I still find The Batman by Matt Reeves to be the worst written Batman, because in Batman and Robin, you at least understand what Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze are trying to accomplish. You don't understand what the heck the Riddler is trying to do in that movie.
No. Well, and I hate even acknowledging him as the Riddler, because what he was just a Dollar General Zodiac Killer knockoff. Like, if you want to do that, just do Zsasz, but you're not going to do Zsasz because he's not as popular and well known of a character in terms of Batman's rogues gallery, and so you want the name recognition, but you don't want to do the work to actually write the Riddler. Like, I would have been so down for an actual world's greatest detective Batman story with the Riddler, and it just being a battle of wits all the way up to the end. They could have done that. I grew up on comics that did that all the time, and they botched it completely. Instead, we got Dollar General, Zodiac Killer, and Batman, who's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. Obviously, this is early in his career. Fine, he's not going to be as refined. However, it was so inconsistent with his character, whether there were moments where he was the smartest person in the room, and then other moments where it's like, how did you miss that clue? Like, you're just really bad at this, right? And also, like, I'm sorry, because he was fine in the suit. I didn't love it, but he was passable in the suit. As Bruce Wayne, though, that moment where he disrespects Alfred, that's where you completely lost me. I was so pissed off. I was like, the hell did you just do? I was like, no, I'm done. I am so done with this.
I never watched it again. That's the crime. Oh, Jeff, they got your $18. Okay, but Batman Forever got the VHS, the action figures, the DVD, the 4K disc. At one point, I had the Hot Toy pre-ordered, but canceled it because I didn't really want the Hot Toy of Batman and Robin from Batman Forever.
Does it look good in 4K?
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Batman 89 does not, though, because they changed the color filter on it, like the Matrix. So Batman 89 has this weird, like, blue tint to it now. It looks like
Which
shit.
It shouldn't have. It should be very neutral.
Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. It used to, on the videotape, I think, didn't they lighten it on the videotape because the theatrical version was so dark? And, like, they had, like, so people wouldn't fuck with their TV right now. I read that somewhere.
I've heard the rumor, but the thing is that I saw the Batman 89 at a drive-in in Toronto, which was a screen about the size of a movie theater. Like, it's a legit drive-in screen. It's the biggest screen you'll ever see in of drive-ins. It was a bright movie when I was watching it as a 4-year-old back then. And then we got the VHS almost immediately. And I was a stickler for detail, and I found nothing wrong with that. It's looked exactly the same to me, color-wise. But apparently other people, I guess, in the theaters were like, oh, it was too dark and you couldn't see or make heads or tails of anything. But it's like, I don't know, man. I saw it on a drive-in screen, and I've been by that old drive-in. It's decommissioned now. But if you want, it's similar to like the one that you see in Back to the Future 3, except when you take a look at the screen, double the size, because that's how big it was. Like, it was huge. Like,
that's awesome.
At least a 7-story building height. Like, it was big. People, like, my aunt used to live in the city, and she's like, she could see the drive-in from her apartment. That's how, and watch the movie. It was like watching it on like a smaller TV. That's how big it was. She just couldn't hear anything because she didn't plug into she was too far away to plug into the radio signal. But I mean, no, I think that might have just been, a section of the theaters that just didn't have the projector settings correct. Or maybe it was a bad run of prints, because again, back in those days, you ran off hundreds of prints of your film and then you shipped them by hand and rarely on planes to each theater, lock and key, And then that same person would come back after the run was done. I mean, at those times, it'd be like 3 to 6 months later to pick it up and then take it back to the studio.
Yeah,
some of which would be archived and others would be destroyed. Just because they didn't want to pay for the storage and upkeep. So
that's freaking wild.
But yeah, the fact that they put a blue filter on that 4K, it's very silly.
That's sad and unfortunate. Those of you who are just now joining us and wondering why we're talking about Batman and other comic book characters instead of the Acolyte, long story short, nothing happened in the Acolyte. And there's that little to talk about. Like I think we said almost everything we could about the episode very quickly.
Almost, but not this point, which is actually important. From Taker 610. That was Kaidi Mundi, by the way. He hasn't been born yet. Now, folks, I don't like that the fact that they just don't pay attention to what's there. Why did you buy it then? Even me, I remember, friends, I may have strong opinions on this stuff, but I'm still on your side for all of it too, because you love episode 1. Okay, then it should be preserved and the characters and the lore should all be treated the same way that I want the first movie to be treated. I'm about fair and equal treatment. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't aware of this, but I don't get how it's so hard. I swear to God, the 700 people here watching and us, if we had the money to buy this shit, we would have it fixed quickly and everything would line up. Here's the thing. It's not about fans writing Star Wars. It's about getting people to catalog it the right way, about people to separate it the right way, find people that are the right writers, and then have the right people to then be like, well, this would work and this wouldn't work and this, that, and the other. Like, that's what you really need. Is you need people like, I know Pablo Hidalgo was a nut bar, but at one point I think that's why he was hired at Lucasfilm, because he knew the lore of Star Wars so well.
Right.
So
him and Dave Filoni were
what you need is you need not fans who are the people that are going to necessarily write the actual projects or direct the actual projects, because mileage may vary there. Sometimes just because you're a fan doesn't mean you're also a competent writer. It doesn't mean you're actually somebody that can direct. You can do both. It is possible to find people that are both, but it is far less likely. So what you actually want is you want somebody who is either a genuine fan to own the property, or a genuine fan, or not necessarily a genuine fan, but somebody who can recognize genuine fans and can recognize actual talent and trust people who are talented writers, talented directors, who will like at least do enough research to put out something that fans can enjoy. It doesn't necessarily have to be one for one, but you can do something that will at least make the fans of the thing happy. You maybe you get to 75%. Right, accuracy. Maybe you get to 85%, maybe even 90%, but you're almost never going to get that 100%. Like if they adapted the Thrawn trilogy into film, you know, even in a perfect world, if we had like the best possible writers, people who actually understood the source material, you are not going to get a absolute 1-to-1, 100% adaptation, because a lot of things aren't going to necessarily translate properly from prose to script, and that's just the way that it works. However,
not only that, Han Solo is almost unrecognizable in the Thrawn trilogy. He talks way too much. In the Thrawn trilogy.
I listened to that not that long ago, and I didn't have anything bad to say about the Thrawn trilogy. It's good. I enjoy it.
Good plot.
Yeah, I like
Thrawn's
the movie more. I like the movies more. Like,
then that's fine.
The books are always cool and should be there, and I like that I could walk into a store and go, oh, what's Luke Skywalker up to this time? Or, oh man, a whole book on the Death Star? Tell me the whole history of the Dianoga. Like, I'm on board for all of this shit. I've never been moved the way I was with that movie. I'm like, whoa, what? Like, and I get it. It's a visual medium. It's a different medium, but I've read books where I'm really hooked on the characters. Like, outside of watching the movie with Jack Nicholson, I did like McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I did remember all the characters from I can't remember the book. Holden Caulfield, the character. I remember him. I can't.
Captain the Rye. Captain the Rye.
I read these books and the needle moved and I remember their stories and stuff. When I read a Star Wars book, I'm like, oh man, it's another adventure with Han, Luke, and Leia. And maybe it's the Star Wars fan in me, but I'm always just like, I kind of just care about how they're handled. And if I feel like they're accurate to whatever, it's like, well, this type of villain's, there's different parts of the galaxy. As long as my characters are the same, I'm on board. So,
and that's one of those things I've said before when it came to the sequel trilogy. If you want to sell me on new characters being the focus of this, okay, good luck. Make them interesting, because there are characters that have existed in Star Wars for decades that I absolutely love and are very near and dear to me. However, if you want to use characters that have come before, be respectful of those characters and the fans of those characters. Had they wanted to tell the story of Rey and they had done it in a competent way, made her an endearing character, made us give a crap about her, wasn't a Mary Sue, did all the right things with her, and treated Han, Luke, and Leia respectfully, right? To a degree where we were like, all right, like they're not the main focus of this trilogy, but I love what I'm seeing of them. And I feel like I'm respected as a fan of Luke Skywalker, of Han Solo, of Leia, right? And then as long as you're doing your due diligence and a good writer, then you'll sell me on Rey. That's not what they did, because we didn't have competent writers. But like, you can do that. You don't have to give me that trinity of characters, right, for every single story. I don't necessarily need that. There are people that it's like, if it's not Han, Luke, and Leia, I don't want it. I don't care. There are people that they only believe in Star Wars, not A New Hope, Star Wars. Like they don't acknowledge anything that came after that, whether it's the books, whether it's the comics, games, even Empire. Like there's only one Star Wars film for them, and that's fine. That's
you
their
can
business.
just say me, Andrew. It's okay. I'm not going to take
weird people like Jeff. But that's entirely fine.
Look, I like Empire Strikes Back. It's a 10 out of 10 as well. And Return of the Jedi is a good movie. I like to say that to see if I could get people riled up, but the first one's the most interesting. Beyond the movie itself, the production of Star Wars is fascinating. The production
behind the scenes stuff is incredible.
Such a controlled, like, it's like, okay, they showed up to Set High one day after partying with the Rolling Stones. Got it. Irving Kershner ran over. Got it. It wasn't like there was a snowstorm and then the people wanted to revolt and George Lucas had a heart attack. It's like, really, the making of Star Wars is as entertaining, I'll get the words out eventually, as the film itself to me. And I put those together. I find it, interesting to learn about that movie.
Oh, I love the behind the scenes stuff for it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a more fascinating movie to learn about the history of than Star Wars. Like Wizard of Oz is cool to learn about, especially those old techniques, how everything had to be done by old styles and the opticals and all those things. Those are fascinating. But like, the making of Back to the Future's interesting to the point where it's like, yeah, they shot the movie for 6 weeks and then reshot it with Eric Stoltz, and you're like, or with Marty see, Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought The Offer, not really the documentary, but the fictional story behind The Godfather was very entertaining and a lot of fun to watch. And I highly recommend it. It came out like last year or the year before.
It's on my list.
It's really good. In fact, the guy who they got to play Bob Evans, uncanny. In fact, I would love to have seen like him doing, like, bring him back. Let's see the making of Rosemary's Baby. Let's see, all the other stuff that Bob Evans was working in at the time, because that guy literally, not only did he save Paramount, he saved Hollywood. And we don't have a producer like that anymore.
Who's the best producer these days, you think?
Best producer these days? God.
I mean, is there a big one? Is James Wan or Blum?
No, I've met James Wan's production team. They're dumbasses. They all look like roided out beefcakes wearing toques in summer, like Tim Pool on steroids. It's a good question. It's really
what do you really think about them?
I mean, James Wan is a nice enough guy. Like, I've heard great things about him. It's just the team that you have to pitch to get to him are arrogant, and they're doing more damage to his career than good, in my opinion, at least. And I'm not even regarding like the stuff that I've pitched to them. Like I've seen some stuff that's been pitched to them from better writers than me, and they're like, nah, it's not our style. It's like, it's not about you, man. It's about James. Better producers. I don't know. Like, Lauren Schuler Donner is like one of the best out there, but the thing is, she doesn't get to do as much these days anymore because, of course, she's a little older. Her husband passed away a few years ago. I think the next thing she's doing is Lethal Weapon 5 with Mel Gibson, that he's recently confirmed is going to happen.
Yeah, I just saw that today, actually.
That might be the last thing she does, because even though she's been trying to get more stuff done, at least on a higher profile, not many people are listening to her. And Susan Downey's really good. But again, she does more indie art stuff. She doesn't like to do the big, like some, you know, what's funny? It's like, yeah, I know a couple of producers that are women that are probably really good. And if they got the opportunity to be in bigger positions at studios, you might get a lot faster productions back to a traditional form of Hollywood than you have today. And these are ones that are not studio heads, but they're just the people that find and make sure the movie gets completed. Like that's what Bob Evans was doing. He was finding scripts and he was making sure they got completed. He wasn't creating decisions over a franchise or anything of that nature. He's just like, we have all these scripts that I'm working on. I'm talking with all the writers. I'm talking with the producers who are working on the actual hands-on production of the project. And we're making sure they're all getting in order. And I'm securing the deals. And I'm making sure that the head of the studio doesn't cancel any of these things because they're all going to be great pictures, such as Chinatown, The Godfather, Rosemary's Baby. Those are legendary films. And where, I mean, their scripts are out there. I know they're out there. Whether or not, like right now, you have to have this uphill battle against contemporary marketing and people who came straight out of business school, hired by the studios so that their current day business acumen could be applied to an ever-changing market. And what ended up happening is that they took over how to make movies without any knowledge of actually how to make movies.
Here's a way to circle it back around to Star Wars is that apathy that I was talking about earlier that has set in so much, and we see it with the watch numbers and things like that with these Disney Plus shows. This franchise can't afford, well, one, it can't afford the budget that the shows are already using, but to put out like a big budget film, put in theaters, I mean, you're already not making money off of the Disney Plus stuff. That's huffing your own farts, putting it on your own platform. Like you're not making advertising revenue really on that, unless, you know, with the exception of the people that have the version of Disney Plus that still has ads, which most people are willing to be like, yeah, I'll pay $5 extra a month to not have the ads because ads annoy me and I'm not trying to pay for cable TV, right? Like why am I having ads on this? This is not cable. Why are you treating it like cable? So if they put out, because right now we have 2 films that are allegedly confirmed, right? There's supposedly the Mandalorian and Grogu, and then there's supposed to be the Rey one, right? Yep. Nope. People already are not consuming Star Wars right now, unless it's older fans like us consuming the old stuff or making fun of the new stuff on YouTube. So what's going to happen when they drop these films in theaters with zero goodwill to bank on? And they had a budget of $180, $200, $250 million or more. Who knows? It's Disney. They've got a problem with bloat when it comes to their budgets, if you believe me. So they're going to do that. And like they're not even coming out with a Mandalorian and Grogu film when that sub-franchise was at its peak in popularity, right? They didn't capitalize on that. Instead, they just kept everything to Disney Plus, where they weren't really monetizing it. Not enough people were signing up for the thing. Yeah, they certainly in Mandalorian season 1 and 2, they had better watch numbers than anything that's come since. But they're not going to make any money. Like how much do you have to kill a franchise until you realize you've killed the franchise?
Well, I mean, Mandalorian was saved by the Baby Yoda merch. And that which came late. I mean, that the thing is,
oh yeah, because they didn't think the character was going to be a big hit, and all of a sudden it was a big hit, and they scrambled. Yeah, there was no merch for Grogu at the beginning. I remember that.
Disney did make a lot of money off of that. It was one of the only things they did make money off of.
But they reached their audience with that. It was tapped, and then now what's left, right?
And yeah, well, now what's left is, I guess we're not getting a Mandalorian season 5. Instead, it's going to be a feature film, supposedly. I may be wrong there, but that's my last recollection. Patty Jenkins is trying to claim that her Rogue Squadron film is not shelved, which it is.
There's no way that thing's still happening.
And yeah, you've got a Rey movie to listen. It will have a solid opening from the normies that aren't paying attention to this. Because listen, if you take a look at the Disney Plus subscribers, and you take a look at the general population around that has access to Disney Plus, most of them have no idea that there are Star Wars TV shows. Mm-hmm. Objectively. So for them, if you said to them, yeah, Star Wars, Disney needs to take a 5-year break.
Because Disney Plus isn't that in like much of a draw for them.
Doesn't matter. If they're thinking, wow, that The Rise of Skywalker is pretty bad, maybe Disney should take 5 years off before they make another Star Wars movie. Well, guess what? That's kind of already happened from their perspective. They have no idea of The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, Andor, The Acolyte. They have no idea that those shows exist. So when they go and see, a Star Wars movie's back. Wow, it's been 5 years since the last one. Last one sucked. Maybe they got their game back together. They're going to go in. They're going to be hoodwinked. They're going to react most likely pretty typical to how they did with The Rise of Skywalker and such. And it's going to have that big opening weekend, but it's then going to have a 90% drop off from the following weekend. Because they'll realize, hey, this is kind of the same level of bad quality that we had before. And then maybe someone will tell them, well, that's because even though they haven't been making movies, they've been making television shows of the same quality. And you're just getting that back into the theaters. Like
you're just getting that, except you're paying $21 to go see it.
As opposed to $15.99 a month for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I don't think the Mandalorian movie is going to move the needle like they do. I don't think any of this stuff's going to move the needle.
It's not the right timing for that to have a chance to. Like they waited too long to do that. They had to have done that at the peak of its popularity.
After I get through these super chats, I want to ask you guys a question, which I know will go on. It's a related tangent, folks, so don't think, they're going to change the topic. It's about movies and stuff. So I want to ask you guys this in a minute. So Enrique Vasquez, thank you, man. He says the money went to hush the ladies that Leslie gave to Harvey, allegedly. Maybe there'll be a book. Maybe there won't be.
There was a play. Leslie Headland wrote a play kind of talking about Harvey Weinstein, and it actually came out around the same time David Mamet did a play about Harvey Weinstein. I'll put it to you this way. Listen, I don't agree with her and whatnot, but I do know how a personal assistant works in Hollywood, and that it's not one personal assistant to one person. It's actually multiple personal assistants doing multiple things. So you're free to make any sort of assumption or suspicion as to what Leslie Headland knew or how much she did. But I think the truth would be far more juicy than the assumptions. And one day that truth will come out. And when it does, it's going to be glorious.
I guess we'll have to cover it since it's tangentially related to Star Wars.
Possibly.
It is now.
Or tangentially.
Terrible. Oh, you're
anyway,
bad, man. You're a bad man.
Look, I have a weird sense of humor. Find out in Wokebusters.
I was about to you took the words out of my mouth.
That's the thing, man. I put the comic back in comic books. I'll do superheroes and I'll do all the stuff everybody wants later, but I had to tell one last funny story. People laugh at stealing Solo, so
laugh out loud funny.
I can't wait to be called racist for Wokebusters. That's the thing I can't wait to be called. Like I know I'm gonna get letters like how did you write this? Because it's funny and somebody should say it, and it's me. So I don't care. We'll make a list, man, on the show. We'll be like, what names do they call Jeff for this book? Xavier God says, Jeff, when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, I recommend only the Battle of the Gods movie and Resurrection of F over the anime version arcs, the Tournament and the Destroyers and Tournament of Power, maybe the Broly movie. Okay, let me take a screenshot of this.
And I would say this, if you have any Dragon Ball related questions, whether it's the original, Z, GT, Super, go check out Geekdom 101's channel. Danny is a friend of mine, and he is the Dragon Ball guy.
I got to talk to him one of these days. I got questions I want to ask him.
Dude, do it. Absolutely do it. He loves educating people in it. Like, Dragon Ball is his life. In the way that, like, Star Wars used to be so many of ours, Dragon Ball is his thing. That is his claim to fame. That's his favorite franchise. He's a big Marvel guy as well. He used to like Star Wars. But absolutely hit him up.
I'll say this briefly. Well, it's a super chat related thing. I realized, like I said on the show, maybe it was the podcast, I really did like Dragon Ball Z as a kid, and I had a huge wave of nostalgia when I watched the older stuff that I remember from '99 when I started watching it. And then I got to the later stuff, and like I said, I remember that I did stop watching Dragon Ball Z for a minute, but I finished it this time, and what a stupid ending. I'm sorry. That was a great show, but that had a terrible ending. I mean, oh, hey, it's Oob. I'm going to leave my family and run off. I was like, come on, what is this? Like, this shit should have ended epically. I hate this. Maybe it's an anime thing that I don't like, but I hate when stories go to the mundane and then resolve. I hate it. I like stories.
That's a common shonen thing.
Yeah, I like stories like I like stand-up comedy. Holy shit, wow, what a joke. And then it's over. You're like, oh, okay. You don't even have a chance to have a different emotion besides that one last like stab, jab, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to stab anybody. Mangas just end with an underwhelming, like, and now it's all resolved. Like horror movies got the best endings because Michael Myers got shot out the window. They shot him 6 times. And then they go to look for him and he's gone.
He's not there.
And then they show you everywhere he's been and you can hear his breath. And it's like the best ending to a horror movie ever. That's not The Thing, but it's the same director.
John Carpenter, man.
The greatest of all time.
Like
I'm putting it out there.
So good. He's so
he is I go this far. He's the greatest living director.
I'm glad I finally watched the Thing. I'm glad I finally watched The Thing. I had enough people yanking my chain to go watch.
John Carpenter's epic.
I don't feel bad about it.
I want to do a John Carpenter style gritty like story one day, as in like in a couple of years, because it's not gonna
dude.
Take that
do
long.
it. Do it.
Oh,
his stuff is very heavily influenced by classic westerns, so it's really easy to kind of mix that up with the horror genre, and you're down.
Well, here's the thing. I'm such, and this is partly due to being surrounded by so many wonderful creatives, not just in my day-to-day job, obviously over the Rippaverse and everybody that I work with there, but hanging out with Jeff all the time, chatting with Script all the time, and all these other cool people that I interact with on a daily basis over on Twitter. Like, I am so pro go out there and do it. Like we need the alternatives right now. We need the alternatives more than ever. It's so important. It's so vital. And to that end, those of us who are bitching about the quality of our mainstream entertainment right now, we should probably put our money where our mouth is. And if we are ourselves creatives, if we have a talent, whether it's drawing, whether it's writing, whatever that looks like, do it. Make it happen. Do something. Find other people that are like-minded and want to tell a good story. Make something happen. It's not easy, but it is worthwhile, because we should be able to give the people that come after us stories that are the quality, if not better, than we got to experience growing up, like of the best of the stuff. Like I look at the quality of the entertainment that's happening today, and I look back at my childhood. I'm looking at my comic books that were, the 80s, the good stuff of the 90s, some of the good stuff of the early 2000s, the cartoons that I grew up with, man. Ninja Turtles, Batman, Justice League, Spider-Man, like despite all of its flaws.
We had 2 good Ninja Turtles cartoons, because the 87 one's classic and the 03 one's really good.
Right. And then they did the 03 one, which was also actually quite good. They like upped the maturity level on it a little bit. Yeah. And it was like, what? The generation that came after us don't have that same quality entertainment. That's why their standards are so freaking low.
But dude, what they have is a derivative version of what we have, but they refuse to watch our version because it's old. But what they don't realize is we're not like, we are nostalgic for stuff. But me personally, let me use this as an example. Spider-Man, my favorite superhero. Yeah, I enjoyed that show as a kid. I thought it was the greatest cartoon ever. But as an adult, I was like, Spectacular Spider-Man's a better written show. It's better. It's truer to Spider-Man. It's more accurate to the Ditko era. It's blah, blah. And it became my favorite thing. I am nostalgic for the old version. But even like just from a technical standpoint of animation or characters or this or that, I give the nod to the newer show. But if I was only on nostalgia, I'd go old. But certain things, it was better before, because all you're doing is copying the same crap. We live in the VHS society, folks. It's a clone of a clone of a clone. And eventually you realize the clone just isn't what you thought it was. It's just a homogenous blob of shit. And that's what we have with modern entertainment. So there you are. And yeah, I will do my John Carpenter style story. I'm going to do tons of comics. Believe me. Like, it's just me. Taker610 says, guys, do you know that OSHA May is a soap company? I know that OSHA is a government thing, and now it's OSHA. Jesus. Is it? Hold on, let's look at it together.
Sure. Let's see.
It's out of California. Thank God I'm not. Here we are. OSHA May, aromatherapist, site-wide sale, 25% off for the month of June. Let's dismiss that.
Oh, then that totally is yeah.
This is oh god, I'm gonna
OSHA May soaps. There we go.
Oh my god, Star Wars: The Essential Oil Collection.
Oh my gosh, shoot me twice in the face, right between the eyes, please, so it's fast.
Oh god, thank God they're find them. They're located at the Halifax Seaport Farmers Market. They're open Saturdays 8 to 2. By the way, they're out of Canada, not California. I don't mean to. I messed that one up. Anyway.
Yeah, if it's Halifax, it's like, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I was like, wait, .ca is not
territory.
California. That is Canada. There we go. So if you didn't think the Acolyte could get any dumber, folks, now it's named after the character's named after a soap company.
Oh gosh.
We should do a comic where it's just Arm and Hammer. There you go. See if we'll get sued.
Shoot.
I swear it's Army Hammer. Anyway. We got a nice message that I got to read in a minute from Mary Mayhem. So Taker610, thank you. I'm going to make a video about this because of you, my friend. So thank you, Ocean May screenshot. Tim Riggs, what is up, my friend? Can't wait to see you in a few months. Pretty glad I haven't watched this. Everything I hear tells me, 1, I teed up for the Brazzers parody. 2, when does that come out? And will it have more compelling plot? And 3, happy ending. You'll be a lot happier watching any adult parody of a Disney property. But
or just consuming any older Star Wars content, unless you hated the prequels that much. And even then, you might be able to tolerate that better. Because I know plenty of people that hate the prequels, and they're like, yeah, I'll sooner, like, you strap me to a chair and I'll watch those.
I got a quick, easy fix for Lucasfilm if they want to get more people to like their shows too. Appeal to them psychologically that they don't realize they like it. Put the Ben Burt sound effects and use some music that is recognizable, and people will become a lot kinder to your show. Now, I'm not trying to give them advice to make the show better. What I'm trying to point out is those are two things that these things lack that people don't even realize they lack. We talk about the writing and the agenda and the modern this and that, but Star Wars isn't just George Lucas's vision. It's Ralph McQuarrie's art. It's Joe Johnston's production design. It's John Williams' music. It's Ben Burt's sound effects and all the men that did the special effects and the couple ladies that worked there too. My point is, we've cut out two of the core parts of the franchise, and it's just really weird. Like, yes, the lightsaber sound effect is there, but what happened to those great blasters and what happened to the great ship flybys? Just go to the Lucasfilm archive. Oh, this ship has the same engine as a Millennium Falcon, but you turn the pitch down to 12. Who gives a shit? Like, if it sounds close enough to Star Wars, we're all going to be like, ooh, okay. But it's foreign, and it
there's no inventiveness to the sound anymore. Where's the electric razor inside the tin pot to make, your Federation skiff sound? Anything of that nature.
I've got so much respect for the tech people that were involved in movies, especially fiction, especially sci-fi or sci-fi adjacent films from like the 80s, 90s, right? Like before we had like crazy special effects to work with and like super powerful computers to do all of this crazy stuff with, like the creativity and the inventiveness that had to be exercised from a lot of these guys in order to get the sounds that have become iconic to us. Like the scene, I remember, I'm surprised I didn't burn out the DVD, honestly, with how many times I watched the makings of for Jurassic Park when I was a kid. I did burn out the VHS. I killed that thing. That thing no longer lives. However, the DVD, I would watch the film and then I would watch the makings of, and I would do that on almost a daily basis. This is not even an exaggration. And so, dude. Hearing the story of like Stan Winston, like with his animatronics, and I'm pretty sure it was Spielberg, who like he figured out how to do the water ripple thing in the cup because he actually had his cup on his guitar one day, and it was just completely happenstance that it happened. And that kind of stuff was so cool. And now everything's so easy, and yet it doesn't feel as authentic.
It doesn't. In your expression on your face when you talked about the making of Jurassic Park, that's your Star Wars. Now we're on the same level on this like journey, whatever I'm talking about. But we like the groundbreaking stuff. We talk about it and we don't stop talking about it. And that's why I believe some of these shows go on and on about trying to be the first. We got to be the first this, the first that, because they think they're going to write themselves immortality by being
right. They want to reinvent the wheel and be the first whatever.
And the thing is, they always produce crappy stuff. Like, what was it? George R.R. Martin said the other week, they copy these people, but they never are better. They're never the next whatever. They never elevate it. They make it their own, and that sucks. And that's all this is people making stuff their own. Like, make it your own way. Like, do your own stuff too. I just don't. I'm not interested in these ladies' therapy sessions. Xavier to God, thank you very much. He says, would you guys be down for a Spider-Man special with these Spider-Men? The Amazing Spider-Man, or Spider-Man, the animated series, Unlimited, The New Adventures of Spider-Man, and Spectacular.
I don't even remember New Adventures of Spider-Man.
That's the Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I didn't actually watch that one.
I watched every episode of that. You talked about a drive-in script. I went and saw Terminator 3 and Charlie's Angels 2 Full Throttle in the worst double feature ever. But I was 13.
I am sorry.
That seems about right. Yeah.
Well, it was 2003, and I thought it was going to be awesome, and they both sucked. But we did get home early enough, or maybe it was just the right time, where they had already they were replaying the Spider-Man show for the West Coast, and I had to watch that show. I was so pumped. You got to remember too, folks, I love comics. I think of them differently. I don't sit and think about the characters. I think about the making of or the way they're done. But back then, I was so invested in Spider-Man. I was like, all right, the show's going to air. I got to watch it. And I saw everyone. I taped everyone. It was cool back then. I loved that shit. I would love to get that show in 4K. I know it would cost them money to remaster it, but it would look amazing to see those effects, that CG animation upscaled. It would be bright, colorful, and the show's dark. It's kind of weird. It's not like canon, and it doesn't really feel like average Spider-Man stuff, but it's its own thing. It's like Halloween 3 or On Her Majesty's Secret Service. They're part of something. They're very recognizable as being a part of that thing in some form or fashion, but it's usually not someone's go-to to jump into the story or recommend to people. But I think it's a great difference, because how many times can you watch Spider-Man fight Venom? Once is enough for me. But
that's one of the issues right now with these long-standing franchises. A lot of these people it goes to show they advertise. Tourists always advertise their tourism when it comes to franchises, or their lack of inventiveness. They just always go for the same villains, right? It's how many villains that Spider-Man has that have not been on screen yet? They would be fantastic.
The Ringer. Show me the Ringer.
Dude, you could do a cool chameleon story. You could do so many. A good writer could do a great story with just about any Spider-Man villain, but they just reuse the same characters over and over and over, and they reuse them not well too.
Well,
they don't do a great job with it.
They lean into most recognizable because they want to draw those people in. And then if they can hold on to them, that's when you start to experiment with the less recognizable heroes.
That's the kicker, though, right? Because those of us that are fans, right? It's okay, so you couldn't get this right, and this should be a layup because of how well known this character is. There's no shortage of source material on. It would take you a day to do at least a sciential level of research to be able to be passable in what you're writing, and you couldn't even do that, and so you're not going to get that character right. I don't care about anything else you're going to do. Would you think I'm going to be on board and believe you're going to be able to sell me on doing Chameleon or doing Vulture or doing whatever other character? It's you can't do that. You couldn't even get this guy right, and that's the easiest one.
I think it's merchandising. I think it's
sure,
how to sell the same movie over and over again.
Venom toys sell. Look, it's true.
I know. Look I feel weird as a fan of these things because I want them to be around and all this, but I'm enough fucking Venom figures. I get it. There's Monster Venom and Veiny Venom and Venom with wings and and the thing is too is Venom is like Wolverine, but even lesser.
Oversaturation of them.
Dude, the saturation for Venom's terrible. And Hasbro will rip you off, folks. They sold this bullshit Venom pack with this vampire guy, and the figure set was $58, but people only wanted Venom.
People only wanted it for Venom, yeah, but they were well, we also have the license to this character, and we need to try and make money off of it.
That's all they do. I don't get it. But hey,
I've got only one Venom action figure, and he's got a rubber head to take off to reveal Eddie Brock underneath.
Nice.
With a tiny little head?
It's not too tiny. It's actually to scale with the rest of the model. It's the rubber head that's a little too big.
Okay.
I didn't have any Venom toys growing up as a kid. One of my best friends, though, actually my best friend as a kid, he had this gigantic one. He was this big. He was 18 inches tall or at least a foot tall, right? He was massive. And it was big hulking Venom. He reminded me of Venom from Maximum Carnage. And I was man, that's cool. And he also, I think, had the similar large Spider-Man that you have, Jeff, that you show off every now and then, the big one as well.
Oh, the one from Spider-Man 2?
Yeah. He had one like that. but it wasn't that exact one. It was one that was similar, but that looks like it's higher quality. Honestly.
This was just a big drawing model for me, because when I bought this back when I was 15, I was like, all right, now I'm gonna pose it and draw it. And so I used to sit there and draw from it for hours on end.
That's a great way to do it.
But no,
as long as there's enough articulation.
Bro, dude, the reason I brought it up, just so I could talk about it, every finger has multiple joints. Like,
that's so freaking awesome.
Yeah. Like Spidey's kind of. I still stand by this is the best one ever made, even though the Hot Toy's up there and people are like, oh, they made this version and that version. I don't care. That is the best one.
Dude, in that era, there weren't very many figures that had that much articulation. Like, that was extreme rarity, if I remember.
Well, to be fair, not to play contrarian, the Spider-Man
If I'm wrong, you can tell me I'm wrong.
Bro, the little figures had movable fingers. They had so many moving parts on Marvel figures, but they were fuck ugly. They would have like really shitty bodies, but they'd be super articulated. But then you couldn't hold weapons because their hands wouldn't close. And then they would kind of just like lean to the side, or because they had like really heavy upper bodies because they were trying to do too much. I'm not a Hasbro bro, but some of the Marvel Legends today just are engineered better. Like the X-Men. Those look great. The X-Men from Toy Biz looked really shitty.
I have an Emma Frost that came out, I want to say a year and a half ago. Marvel Legends, I've got that. That's a nice figure. But they actually just either announced as pre-order or just came out with a Carnage that it looks like it's a freaking $50, $60, $70 figure. And it's just a Marvel Legends. And I was like, excuse me? That doesn't look like no Marvel Legends I've ever seen, with like how much articulation is there, like the quality of the paint. Obviously, it was a promotional photo, so it's possible.
They always look better.
The final thing might be a little lesser, but it just was a fantastic looking figure. And I remember seeing it and being like, that is not a Marvel Legend, at least not a Marvel Legend I've ever seen.
I haven't bought a Marvel Legend in quite a while, but folks, you really liked my last Ollie's video, and I saw a lot of Marvel Legends there. Mary Mayhem in the chat. What is up? She says, a lurk left for you dapper gents while I work. Well, Mary, thank you very much. And I got your message too. Thank you very much. Maybe it's just the heat. TLJ Screwjob, thank you very much. Member for 16 months. Jeez, think of all the things that can happen in 16 months. Lots. A baby could be born. The mom could get pregnant again and be ready to give birth fairly soon again. So lots of shit can happen in 16 months. I picked two really weird things. Anyway, thanks to the success of IO2, they won't get rid of the people that made Wish and Lightyear. People say, well, how's that IO2 then? Or sorry, how's IO2 made then? Huh? Well, broken clock. Anyone? So that's Inside Out, right? So that's what.
Yeah, Inside Out too. Supposedly doing well.
It's doing well because it doesn't have any of the superficial agenda that you saw in the other ones, but also
just like a family movie, as I understand.
The people that worked on Inside Out 2 are not the same team that worked on Wish or Lightyear. Like, that's the big difference. It's a completely different team. It may be under the same people running it, but for some strange reason, I don't know what, but Inside Out 2 got away unscathed, because even those that have been looking at it for the most scrutiny of woke stuff have said, well, it's kind of not really there. And it's like, well, that's a good sign. So maybe there'll be some sort of inclination to realize that, yeah, it's not there. Now, some people have compared it that it follows some similar story beats to what you see in Turning Red, but it's done better because it's through the characters of each emotion, as opposed to just it all being pulled into one character going through all those emotions physically. And I will say this, it is kind of clever to have anxiety as the antagonist or villain of the story, because everybody has anxiety to various degrees and levels.
And anxiety can be one of the most crippling things to an individual.
And the other part too is that it can be because there's too many people around that individual that's enabling it to give it so much strength. And if you don't have a proper support system, anxiety can be debilitating. But if you do have a proper support system, it becomes nothing more than something that you can regulate to be used appropriately. Like, hey, you have a bill due on Friday and you don't have enough money to pay for it right yet. Yeah, you have a right to be anxious of that, but not to the point where it's going to cripple you to prevent paying that bill, or at least calling them and saying, hey, I need 4 or 5 extra days for my paycheck.
On my next paycheck. Yeah.
Right. That's essentially what the message of Inside Out 2 is, to my understanding. I was supposed to see it Sunday with my youngest goddaughter, who's 19, but luckily her boyfriend decided to take her out after they did their Father's Day stuff. So I got to go and see some classic films at a rep theater with my girlfriend and stay out way too late. screwing up my sleep schedule for the rest of the
That's
week.
okay to do as an adult. You can do that every once in a blue moon.
What'd you go see?
Okay, I don't know what the second movie was, but the first movie we saw was called Moon 02. It's a Warner Brothers and Hammer production from 1969. It is horrible, but it's got a great plot and it should be a movie that gets remade. And I might write something about it on my Patreon about these are the types of movies that should be remade, not the good stuff that we love.
Right.
The second movie,
what's not broken, don't try to fix. Try and fix what is broken.
Exactly. Now, before that movie aired, they showed a classic Bob Hope comedy special from December of 1977 where they parodied Star Wars by having Bob Hope dressed up as Darth Vader, but calling himself Barf Vader, and he kidnapped Santa Claus. And Olivia Newton-John is dressed up like Princess Leia, and Mark Hamill comes in at the end. It was very funny, and I'm like, wow,
amazing.
That is how powerful Star Wars was back in 77, where 6 months after it premiered, they were still talking about it in parody form. It was that big. The second movie, I don't remember what it was because the theater kind of emptied halfway out, and then me and my girlfriend decided to make out for the next 2 hours.
Nice.
And then
I used to watch a lot of Bob Hope
dinners.
and Bing Crosby movies and Groucho Marx and all of that growing up with my parents.
Yeah.
The classics.
But it was a fun night and a great change of pace. And it was like less than $20 a pop each for the whole night. And it was like a 6-hour event, and they had free food and drinks and stuff. And
Dude, that's a freaking steal.
Yeah, it was great. Like, because we did all our Father's Day stuff in the morning with her dad. He came down to the city area, and we hung out with him, and then he and his wife went to their hotel, and then we went to the rep theater and had our night, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you had a great time. That's great. Yeah. It's so refreshing to be able to actually enjoy stuff. That's why I always commit to, like, after watching garbage like The Acolyte, it's like, okay, what can I watch that I enjoy, or that I at least suspect I might enjoy that I haven't seen yet, that will cleanse my palate of this. I still have franchises that have been mostly unsullied. Mileage may vary, but I love the Jurassic franchise front to back, minus Jurassic Park 3. And even then, I can still quote the movie front to back. Like, if I'm watching and it's on, I know every single line because I saw it 3 times in theaters in the same day when it came out, because I was a dumb teenager and just wanted dinosaurs, right? Like, my buddy and I I'm pretty sure it was during summer, and my buddy and I, we got nothing better to do. All right, let's just keep, like, watching the movie. Let's just go see it again. Why not? We got nothing else to do.
I don't have a concrete memory of it, but I'm pretty sure I saw Jurassic Park 3 in theaters too. Like, I had seen the second one on tape, and I had never seen the first one, but I, like, distinctly remember, like, rephrase it, I vaguely remember going to see that movie. Like, I don't know why I have that memory. So it wasn't good enough to remember the whole plot. Like, there's a talking dinosaur in that one, right? That's the one with the talking dinosaur.
On the plane when Alan Grant's asleep and dreaming. Yeah, the talking raptor goes, Alan. And I remember being in the theater and being like, that's dumb. Why'd you do that?
Kathleen Kennedy as a producer, so yeah.
Yeah, and was it Joe Johnston as
Joe
director?
Johnston, after that, said he'd never work with Kathleen Kennedy again.
Oh, did he? I did not know that little tidbit of information.
Yep.
But I mean, I've still got Jurassic. I've still got Godzilla. I've still got Mission Impossible. I've still got Harry Potter.
What did he say? Script? Do you know any more to the Joe Johnston story?
Other than that, he'd never work with her again. It was a nightmare production for him to shoot. That's about all I can remember offhand. I wish I could remember more. But
Joe Johnston, I'll ask him.
Oh, you'll ask him. Well, I mean, yeah, ask him some questions if you're going to see him. What's interesting is that I'm going to be in Austin this November, and Kathleen Kennedy is going to be on a panel that I'll be attending. So along with Ronald D. Moore. And
like, she actually goes out in public and speaks.
She does. And so I'm gonna see if I can do some investigation. Well, if things work out and I'm able to actually make the trip, because I have been invited. So
keep us appraised.
Yeah,
let me know, Secret Squirrel.
I basically want to figure out if it's really her or if it's a twin sister posing as her, and that's what it's been the entire time.
See, you mentioned that last week, and I had no idea until you brought it up last week that she has a twin. I had no clue.
So you have
that's crazy.
Sister. Perhaps she.
Like, why would God allow there to be 2 of that? That's my question.
Only 2. No more, no less.
Always 2 there are.
Well done. Well done.
By the way, Xavier to God, what's worse, the first or second home films? I'm going to go what's worse, The Amazing Spider-Man or the first 2 home films?
Dude, Far From Home is the worst Spider-Man movie ever. I will watch Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2 on repeat for the entirety of the day, 2 days running, before I watch Far From Home again. That movie was like having a gigantic pine cone kicked up my asshole backwards for 2 hours.
Wait, if you kick a pine cone up your asshole in any direction, it's going to hurt.
Backwards would be worse. It's generally where the little pokey prongs are at the.
But if a pine cone, you know how it goes up and like.
Yes,
this,
it's going to hurt either way, Jeff. It's not.
But
There's no
it would be
comfortable
worse
version of it.
But it would be worse to go in the normal up way because each ring cuts you. The other way, they're going down, so it's like. Never mind. I'm not going to get
pulling it out would hurt more if it went up normal than going upside down, going upwards.
Yeah.
Either way, it was an unpleasant film to watch.
I'm still going to pick those over The Amazing because The Amazing Spider-Man skateboards. Uncle Ben gets shot
for less than a minute of the runtime. I hate that talking point. He does it for less than a minute of the entire film. That's a worthless talking point.
He's this misunderstood weirdo. Oh my god. He gets captured because he leaves his name on his camera. Like that's the level of like, oh man, I'll figure you out. Come on. Like
dude, people put their names on stuff all the time in school. I used to write my name on like my notebooks, my Trapper Keepers.
Spider-Man's supposed
all
to be
of that
really
stuff.
smart. I don't believe he'd be that stupid to go. Oh man, I'm
okay. Well, if we're gonna go that route, if we're gonna go
my name on the thing that I use.
Hold on. If we're gonna go that route,
Spider-Man.
The entire premise for each of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, and there's a correction there. It's Iron Boy is what he actually is. The premise for every single one of those is the entire premise, though. The entire setup is Peter being an absolute retard. The entire setup.
You're preaching to the choir here. The thing, though, is if I had to watch either ones, I would always pick the newer ones because there's some artistic merit to it. Like the scene where Mysterio in Spider-Man had that hallucination and he pulls him down into the grave. That looks awesome.
Sure, it was great effect. The movie's still dog shit.
I don't like the movie, but I can't get over how like hokey the Andrew Garfield Emma Stone shit is. The fact that he writes like I love you on the bridge in Spiderwebs. Like what the fuck is this? Like there was so many elements like 500 Days of Summer my ass. I don't need a romantic Spider-Man movie. I thought the Tobey Maguire ones had too much romance. I'm like I don't care about Kirsten Dunst. I do care about Doc Ock and his wife and the guilt he feels that he accidentally killed his wife with his greatest science invention and now he's a monster. I didn't really care about Mary Jane's. Oh, he didn't come to my play on time.
Well, also was a bad Mary Jane.
Yeah.
That's
Mary
not
Jane's
MJ.
But here's the thing. Mary Jane is a hollow character until she's not for one specific moment, and then she goes right back to being as superficial as she's always been. She's iconic because she's Spider-Man's girlfriend. She's not that great. The one trait is she had an abusive dad, so she becomes a party girl to run away from her problems. That's it. Her story arcs are a guy's chasing after me and he's crazy and he wants to abuse me. Jonathan Caesar. Oh man, another guy's coming after me and he fakes my death. There's the one guy, I don't even remember his fucking name. Later on, the same thing happens. She gets with some billionaire and this flat girl tries to kill her. Like Mary Jane is just a cyclical, somebody else is banging her and Spider-Man's got to cry over her because people don't write good heroes. They have to be all ineffectual and lame and mopey. Thanks, Joe Quesada. You suck. Anyway,
Joe Quesada can rot in hell.
Great artist, terrible writer.
Agreed.
Jimmy Palmiotti, great inker. I don't know his writing style. Sorry.
His writing's solid.
I went to a con to meet him, and I was getting ready to talk to him, but I noticed a girl had a Bengals t-shirt on, so I ignored both of them to talk about the fucking Bengals. I can't believe I did that. I was like, "Oh, Cincinnati, all right, what's up?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm a huge fan." I'm like, "I live there." Blah blah blah.
Gosh.
I was like, "Am I becoming a sports fan?" Ew, not me.
What the hell, Jeff? Wow.
Hey, my favorite comic creators have all passed away. The last living greats to me are like, Jim Lee is not that old, so I'm not really worried about that. But like,
no, he's going to be around for a while.
Alex Saviuk, that guy's great. Met him. That was cool. Jake Arbogast says, that's why I run a D&D game. You know, Jake, I have a D&D campaign. We played for about 45 minutes once, and we suspended it up in Michigan. And we do intend to go back and play it. But here's the thing. I don't dislike it at all. I actually have a good time with it. It's just trying to get Dion to. His wife wants to play it, but Dion doesn't want to. And it's like,
okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like you're just going to have to spook him into doing it with some horses or something. You have two options, Dion. You can play D&D, or we could take you to a pony show.
I think what would be better is to make Dion play D&D, but give him a couple of beers so he falls asleep, and then he wakes up, and we're all replaced by mannequins. Folks, if you want to hear more about Dion's mannequin's nightmare, the mannequin nightmare, Dion Green, that's his new fucking name. Anyway, sorry, that's a wrestling reference. Tim Riggs, thank you. CGI has removed all restraints from creativity. Who knew that the lack of limitation would produce mediocrity at best and flat garbage at worst? Is that the worst?
When you don't have to use your imagination to solve problems, yeah, you end up being less creative because what is it? Scarcity is the mother of invention, is usually the term. Or some sort of paraphrase of that.
Yeah, well, because you got to get creative at that point, right? Like you have to figure out how to make it work.
Well, I think also too, I don't think we use our brains as much as we would do to use our. Sorry, let me rephrase that because that's the most poorly worded sentence I've ever said on the show. Our imaginations aren't being engaged as much because we have everything that we could possibly imagine thrown at us. So we don't think about what else could it be. You don't think about how crazy it would be because everything's done. Okay. You're like, oh man, like when you look at a comic book page, like, let's say you're a kid in the 60s and you're looking at Spider-Man and he's just, jumping like this. You kind of fill in your head like what it would look like to see him swing around. Like when you have an action figure, here's a Stone Cold Steve Austin. You kind of, you think of this theme song and what he's going to do and whooping some ass. But if you play a video game,
stomping it's just mud holes and walking them dry.
Yeah, but if it's a video game, it's a predetermined entrance every time in the same five, commentary clips over and over again. And you don't really use your imagination. You react to what a computer is programmed to do. It's really just a reactionary thing. You're not sitting there imagining what a promo would be, or you're not imagining a story you could tell. Like even as a kid with your little action figures, you're booking a match. You're figuring out a fight. If you look at it from an artistic standpoint, when you have your action figures fight, you're figuring out things. You're doing it yourself. You're using your brain. You're not. I like video games, guys. Gears of War is great. All the shit I play is fun, but I think that is where it comes from too, Tim, is beyond just the CGI, the people who make this shit grew up with it a certain way. And those artists, those creatives just are retired or dead. They don't exist anymore. So they don't value people that are into the older way because there's not enough money to be made from the older stuff, the older way. So they got to do it for the new audience. It all just kind of stinks, Tim, but it is what it is. There's the alternative. TLJ Screwjob says, gold lightsaber, green lightsaber, who gives a shit? And that is the quote of the night. TLJ Screwjob, thank you very much. You win the prize. What is it? I don't know. Pick a button, any button. We'll press it for you, my friend. Xavier to God says, what is worse? The first Amazing Spider-Man or Home movie? Well, Andrew, I think you're going to be very surprised that I say that Homecoming is worse than The Amazing Spider-Man 1. It's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 that is I can't stand it. I won't even.
That's Alex Kurtzman writing that one.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 is held back in its writing for sure. Just like with Spider-Man 3, that's Sony trying to shoehorn stuff in it that the.
Oh, I'll never make excuses for Spider-Man 3. That movie is.
That's
it's bad.
Avi Arad and Sony in lockstep.
Exactly.
For doing that.
That's what that
Avi
was.
Arad wanted more action figures from that.
Sam Raimi had no desire or intention to include Venom in that film.
No,
none.
There's no reason to.
No, there wasn't. There was a good story there already on its
own. They were doing the slow crawl to introducing the Lizard, which I was super excited about.
He was trying to tell a really grounded story.
Yeah,
for the most part, he wasn't trying to do all the intergalactic. You get into symbiotes, that's intergalactic stuff.
That's it. Yeah, that's alien stuff. I liked that they cast as Kirk Connors. I thought he was great.
Yeah, Dylan Baker.
That actor was really excited to actually be the Lizard because they were going to motion capture him, and that's what they were being told. It's like, yeah, when we get to the Lizard, we're motion capturing you. You get the full performance, the whole thing, and we never got that. Never got that at all.
It sucks too because I don't like Spider-Man 3, but it was the biggest hit of all of them. And maybe critically it was whatever. Actually, back then it was just like like a 6 out of 10. Like it wasn't a good movie, but it
wasn't very well received. It wasn't a bomb though.
It's the most successful Spider-Man movie up until the Disney ones. It made more money adjusted for inflation than any of the Andrew Garfield ones because it made like $790 million in 2007 dollars. It was a massive hit. I think only Pirates of the Caribbean made slightly more that year. But that's off the goodwill of Spider-Man 2 being an amazing movie that most people probably saw on home video because it made a decent amount less than the first Spider-Man movie. Like Spider-Man's a weird franchise. Up, down, really high.
Which is weird because the second one is a superior film.
Was that script?
Spider-Man 2.5 DVD did actually gangbangers. I remember when that came out too. That was the lead up to Spider-Man 3. Because once they released that at the perfect time because it's like, hey, remember Spider-Man 2? Well, guess what? There's 2.5 and Spider-Man 3 is literally the following summer. Here you go, kids.
Dude,
and then,
I don't think it was the following summer. I think Spider-Man 2.5 came out a few months before Spider-Man 3 because I was in high school and I remember going to Kmart to buy it because I had my car only my senior year. And I was like, oh my God, it's here. And then that movie, I think, was out like weeks later, honestly, dude. It was that like thin of a margin.
Maybe. It's tricky for me to remember because it was a very tight window. But then I remember I was like, okay, yeah, pre-production for Spider-Man 4 is Black Cat, the Vulture, and I think another one. I can't remember who. It wasn't the Lizard yet. Mysterio, you're right.
It was Bruce Campbell. There's all the production art for it.
Yeah, he does. And then for some strange reason, even though that movie did so well, they're like, yeah, Sony's like, no, we're not gonna continue.
Well, because they wanted their movie on a specific date, and was it Sam Raimi said, no, I can give it to you the next year, and then they fired him, and then they made the movie in the same time that they would have had Sam Raimi for. So
pretty much
it is what it is. Chuck E. Cheese, thank you very much for your generous super chat. Jeff, I love the toy walks and Ollie visits. If I ever have a shitty day, I just watch you looking through dusty stacks of Shuri-copters, Shang-Chi, Rose Tico figures, and more.
That's a really uplifting experience. I will agree with that.
I'm glad you guys like it so much. By the way, I think somebody said they're changing Wikipedia to make a Coyote Monday shit. Let me get that screenshot up in a second. But yeah, folks, I'm glad you like the toy videos. I love making them. I haven't stopped because you don't stop watching them. But guess what? I have some good news. I got invited to go out of town to a convention. So I will be going to said convention. But guess what? On the way, I'm going to be looking at Ollie. So Thursday night show is going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you get everything in early. Let's hit it early on Thursday night because I'm going to go to bed, get up, hit the road by like 8 a.m. and just go down the highway and hit every Ollie's I can on the way to Tennessee. And then Nick is going out to film some stuff at a special location. And then I actually got an email from a store asking me to feature them in a video series that I had been working on. So what I'm trying to get at, folks, is we are more than a Star Wars channel, and I've always been more than a Star Wars channel. These toy videos go to show you that that is a series. But I'm going to be doing more walks and things like that you guys like because you seem to just like to hear me talk about it, and we aim to please. So we did a Halloween special last year. That was fun. That was a hit. But there are some big toy stores that I'll be working with and going to, and that's part of the Japan trip too. So folks, follow us, help us cross these goals, and we got some really cool stuff for you. We're doing what no one else is really doing around here. We're more than just, talking
what no
about
YouTuber has done before.
Yep, I like to say that I am an individual guy. I don't watch other people's videos to make sure I don't copy them. I don't know what anybody else says in our sphere. We could have an identical thing. It's like, I didn't watch it because I don't want to get influenced by it. I'm just trying to do my own thing the best way I know how.
I just don't have time to watch a ton of YouTube videos anymore.
I
watch yours and Eric's.
Well, thank you. I watch his stuff too. Usually commentary, like a comment on a specific thing, not everything. There's nobody out there anymore that I have the time to watch every one of their videos. Like the nerd, the video game nerd is my favorite YouTuber. I haven't watched AVGN since before I moved from California. I just haven't had time. So Tim Riggs right here says, I found WCBS thanks to Ghostbusters 2016. Definitely more than a Star Wars channel.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank you. Most of our biggest hits, Captain Marvel, 2.3 million views. Yeah.
I found it through Last Jedi. I was like, I can't be the only person that thinks this is hot trash. I can't.
The Last Jedi was exciting because I had no clue what it would bring. It was like, and I don't mean the movie, I mean like all the stuff that came around it. Because
blew up the channel. Is what it did.
It was cool because Kendo, I give Kendo the credit. Kendo goes, hey, I found this leak on a website. It sounds credible. If it looks credible, you want to make a video about it? And I said, sure. And I remember sitting there on my bed with my old laptop going, yeah, I'm going to do the whole video based on this thing. And I sat there, like wrote a script, lay it on a pillow, and I was like, cool. And then that video got us to 10,000 subscribers. And then it kept on going and going. And now, folks, thanks to the power of the people and everything out there, we're close to 200K. And I want the gold button. I don't want people to think, oh, what are you guys doing? Working tirelessly to get there and more. So thank you. Also, too, apparently we're going to get an Acolyte fertility wand from one of our listeners on X. So thank you. Rough
I'm
Girl.
sorry. Could you say that again?
Well, Rough Girl says, people are so sensitive. I'm going to buy y'all an Acolyte fertility wand. Oh, so you're going to buy us a lightsaber. That's cool.
Nice. I didn't know you could comment on X streams. That's cool.
I like that feature.
Me too.
I am not like a Elon Musk simp, but I have had more fun on X over the last like 8 months with engagement because it's different now. Like it's easy to talk to people. Before it's like you couldn't even see. I couldn't see a lot of shit. Now I'm just like, oh, okay, this person commented. Let's talk to them. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
No, I mean I've gained almost 2,000 followers since Elon took over, and I haven't done anything new on Twitter.
Yeah, but I have people that are like, you should do more on Twitter. You should do more on Twitter. I'm like, I post like 6 times a day. I don't know what else there is to say. It's
at this point, I just post positive stuff on Twitter. Like whether
Look,
it's promoting your book, promoting Ripiverse stuff, promoting other indies, or like having a good time posting like Godzilla stuff. Like I can't be bothered to get dragged into the dredge that can be social media. Like
I get tagged in like, it's weird. We get, you know, like here we go. Since this is a Star Wars stream, like Lando says, the Empire, it's like a cloud. It always kind of looms over Cloud City, but you know, they get away with it. Like I'm like that cloud, like I'm over here. Like I get all of this in my feed, but nobody brings the drama to us. I'm cool with that. I really don't care. We kind of chill here. But it's like we're just always on the outside. Like I'll see so-and-so fighting on Twitter. I'll get like tagged in a response that's like 12 things down. I'm just like, okay, I now know the drama, but I don't really have anything to add. All right. So our friend Xavier to God, thank you very much for your very generous super chat. He says, what do you like more? Piccolo and Goku special beam cannon on Raditz, Goku, Krillin, and Gohan Spirit Bomb on Vegeta, Birder and Jace Purple Comet Clash, 1718's Dead End Rain on Gohan, or Family Kamehameha or Kamehameha. My favorite is the first Spirit Bomb, but of these ones I'll pick that. I did like the Spirit Bomb to fight Majin Buu because it like the whole people of Earth not wanting to step up to help. It's like literally raise your arms and we will save you.
Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious.
I will have to say, probably, even though it didn't finish him off, Vegeta's final flash against Perfect Cell after he went Super Vegeta during the Perfect Cell arc. This was pre-Cell games. This was before Vegeta wound up getting his shit pushed in, and then Trunks powered up into Super Saiyan. Was it 2. Super Saiyan level? He was still Super Saiyan 1, but it was Super Saiyan level. It was Super Saiyan 1 second grade. If Danny was here, he'd correct me. Something like that. But it's when he got really stupid buff, right? That was just like I was so there for it. My eyes were glued to my TV as a kid when Vegeta looked like he was about to freaking shred Perfect Cell, and he almost did. His aim was just a little off. If it was a little more over to the, I think it was to the left, like he would be done.
I also, since you're talking about Vegeta, I like the Gallic gun. I thought that was just a cool thing.
That's one of my favorite specials in the franchise, easily. I like it more than the Kamehameha, personally.
On my like later viewings of that show, Vegeta becomes the character I find the most interesting. Like Vegeta's the Han Solo of Dragon Ball Z. You know, the bad guy that eventually becomes good. And I get it, Han was never a bad guy in the movies, but he was a criminal who becomes a hero. So that's what I mean. I like those characters. Maybe I'll create one day.
There you go.
Xavier to God. thank you very much for that. But I'm going to pick the first Spirit Bomb from Krillin Goku on Vegeta. I like the Saiyan arc. It's one of my favorite TV like moments. I think it's pretty badass.
It was back when they were focused more on writing rather than just power scaling.
Well, my thing too is the animation style changes and it evolves. I don't think Dragon Ball Z gets ugly or anything like that, but I do like the earlier style because I think there's some brushwork in it versus all the technical pen. Like when they get really buff and they all have the really defined straight musculature that's done with like a specific type of liner, it looks great, especially when it's painted in with the 3 light sources and all that stuff. I'm not digging on it, but that first style, man, it's like softer, a little rounder. When they bulk up, it feels more powerful. It's a little more like the violence isn't as gratuitous, but it feels more visceral because the characters almost look a little more cutesy. So when you see one of them get ripped in half or an arm coming off, you're like, what the hell? So I think the contrast is a lot stronger. Jake Arbogast, thank you very much again. He says, speaking of nostalgia and toys, any of you seen Mighty Max, Mighty Max? Yes, I remember the theme song. Great show.
I remember that show.
Toy line. Episodes
I
are on YouTube.
Had a couple of toys
Story
from
versus
that
the
when I was a
villain.
kid.
Tony J was the mentor. Tony J is awesome voice. He good British actor.
Is he who I think he is?
He plays Lex Luthor's butler in Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. He's the voice of Megabyte in the reboot cartoon series. He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at him now. I'm just trying to think like if his
he was in The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
As who?
He's exactly who I thought he was. I heard literally the words in the clearest of nights. Oh, it's that guy. Boom, got him.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
He actually voiced Baron Mordo in Spider-Man: The Venom Saga back in 2005.
What the hell?
That's just an episode of the cartoon repackaged for a DVD.
Yeah. So that was him. He was Mordo in the original 95 Spider-Man stuff.
How about that?
Yeah.
Great voice.
Oh no, great voice, kind-hearted guy. Passed away like a decade or so ago.
Yeah, it's at 06, according to when I Googled him, because what was it? Rob Paulson and who's the other guy that's a really familiar voice actor? Jim Cummings, right? That's him.
Him and Paul Rudd. Yeah.
A lot of great voices. Again, folks, I don't believe it's an age thing. I do think the caliber of talent has stopped. Maybe because, a guy like Tony J took children's entertainment seriously and brought a voice that was amazing to it. Nowadays, people with a voice like that might try to do something else more distinguished. Or are there even a lot of kids shows I'm sure they're on Netflix. I don't watch it. That's neither here nor there.
Well, I mean, the biggest mistake of current day cartoons is that they're writing with the intention of children, when the trick to a cartoon is you're writing something for kids to watch again when they're older.
Mm-hmm. Which means you can't talk down to your audience.
You can't. Well, no, exactly. You can't talk down to them. But kids, their natural inclination is to grow and to get to adulthood. So any show that doesn't allow or facilitate a path to achieve that is going to be forgotten. And at worst case of all, it's going to put them in a state of arrested development where they're not actually going to grow. I mean, it's like what I get upset hearing new parents speak baby talk to their kids. It's like they're going to have a speech impediment for the first few years of them actually talking, because you're talking to them as they are struggling, trying to understand the words coming out of their mouth.
Get them used to how people actually talk. That's such a great point. And I've heard that point brought up by other people as well. And it's always fantastic. The things like the DC animated universe when we were growing up, even X-Men and Spider-Man, those shows they weren't perfect, but they didn't talk down to their audience. So you can go back and watch them as adults. Yes, we enjoyed them as kids, but if you go back and watch them as adults and you go in with, now you have a new set of lenses, right? Because you've had all this experience growing up in the real world, and you pick out other things. They're like, whoa, they were touching on that or that or that, but they did it in such a subtle or like masterful way that it wasn't like they were beating us over the head with a cudgel with some ideological bit, or at the very least they weren't talking down to us. And that's why those shows, despite a lot of problems, like Spider-Man and X-Men the animated series, have some big problems when it comes to like how schizophrenic they feel when they cut from one scene to the next constantly. However, the story itself holds up mostly very well, strictly because of the writers taking their job seriously and writing in such a way that we can go back now that we're grown and we can see it in a new light.
Well, there's also a pandering aspect to it as well, which is that some parents are like, I don't want my kids learning about certain things too early. It's like, well, yes, that's understandable. But at the same time is, do you watch shows with your children? And if you do, we are writing for you as well, because we want you to enjoy it also. So that's why we'll throw in a joke that, yes, it might be inappropriate for a child, but the child doesn't have the frame of reference to understand what that is, nor do they usually have any inclination to ask what that means unless you have a specific reaction to it. And the smarter parents I know, they may like laugh or chuckle and be like, oh, what's that? It's like, oh, it's something else. And, they just brush it off, because that's what a smart parent does. A stupid parent says, oh, well, this joke here is talking about, the relationship between men and women on a very deeply intimate level. That is basically digging yourself into a hole where that kid is going to learn some information a little bit outside of its weight class. And that's not what you want to do. You want to just say, okay, that's fine. Like the Muppets, watching the classic Muppet television show, tons of jokes for grown-ups in there, none of which kids understand.
Love that show so
but the
much.
Kids still love the Muppets. But when you watch it back again, you're like, oh my God, like,
yeah,
what is
right. You were like,
saying?
oh wow, like my mom let me watch that.
Yes, but the thing is, like, that's how you have fun. Like, listen, you can watch the Muppet stuff, the Muppet sketches from the first few seasons of Saturday Night Live, are very inappropriate for children.
Yeah.
Yet a child could watch it and understand the basic essence of what the goal is, but have no clue what the heck they're talking about and still enjoy it. That was the brilliance of Jim Henson and all the people he worked with, where it's like, yeah, we're playing with puppets. Kids are going to like that, but we're also having fun with the adults as well, because guess what? Parents should be watching television and experiencing stories with their kids, because it's a shared experience, and it's showing them as like, yes, I watched stuff like this when I was your age. You're watching it now. Let's talk about that if you like it or what have you. And then from there, you move on and you say, hey, look at that. Look, we're out in the streets. We see a situation where someone is stealing or an orange from an orange stand or something. Like, we should actually tell the vendor about that, because that's the right thing to do, because they need to know that one of their potential customers is actually not a customer, but a thief. You understand why that's wrong. Basic, simple lessons of that nature. And you don't get those types of things anymore. You get something like, what is it? Is it Coco Lemon or Lululemon or whatever the heck it is, where it's just a kid.
Coco Melon, yeah.
Coco Melon, that's the one. Where it's just a kid who dances around and sings, but it doesn't teach you anything. It's all very much where it is. It's like Caillou. And I've met the writers of Caillou. They should not be around children. I don't think they'd ever harm a child intentionally, but they're creepy people. And whenever I see shows of that nature, I always question is the fact that they are the ones that wish they could be that child again and just stay in that world. And the sad part is a lot of the kids that my godchildren grew up with that watched those shows, because I didn't show that to them. I had Batman the Animated Series, I had a He-Man, I had Rupert the Bear, I had Postman Pat, a whole bunch of other stuff that I would show them. My godchildren are way more mature and composed compared to a lot of their friends that are schizophrenic, on medication, messed up, don't know what they're going to do with their lives, all that type of stuff, because their parents let them watch like Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer, and all these other the Wiggles, I think, was another one, and all that stuff.
Sure.
Like, they're not
The Wiggles. The clap song.
something of that, whatever it was, like, because I know what it was, because I used to babysit the whole group of them, and they'd be like, we want to watch the Wiggles. Like, well, we're not watching that in this house. we are gonna watch actually the Muppet Christmas, and put that on.
Yeah.
I love that.
Muppet A Christmas Story or a Christmas Carol. Yeah.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh,
And,
I freaking love that movie.
You watch that for an hour 15 minutes or so. You take them outside, you turn on the water hose and you spray them down, just because they giggle, have fun in that, and they throw water balloons at each other, and make them a lunch, and then hand them each a towel to dry off, and then their parents pick them up and be like, why are your clothes all wrinkled and why are you wet? And it's like, well, we had a water fight. It was really cool. It's like, oh, I'd hate it when you do that. It's like, well, kids have to be outside and have fun, and it's fun because I get to, take the garden hose, get the nozzle on there, and then hit them from like 20 feet away while I'm sitting in a lawn chair. It's fun. They got to run around and they're laughing and giggling. where are those events? I don't hear those stories so much anymore these days, especially from some of my friends now that are starting to have kids, that have toddlers and whatnot. It's like, no, we don't have time to sit down and choose what they watch or something. They go to grandma and grandpa, they play games with them or what have you, and then watch their weird kid shows and stuff. And it's like, well, do you read books to them? It's like, yeah, every once in a while, but the books that they read them are the contemporary stuff that comes out today. You know,
I didn't even get to watch TV when I was at my grandparents' house.
Yeah.
I got sitting right outside. You were going to take all of that little kid energy you got, and you are taking it out there, and you're going to get rid of it out there.
Unless it was a rainy day, you'd be outside. I mean, I remember I saw Misery on a rainy day because I was at my grandmother's house, and it was thunderstorms that were unexpected. And she's like, "Ooh, I bought this movie that I saw in the theaters and I want to watch it. And yeah, I think it'll be okay for my grandkid." And then I watched Misery I think I was less than 10 years old. Yeah, because that came out late 80s, early 90s. I love that movie. I thought it was cool.
It is a good movie. I saw it in grade
school.
But
I'd already got to that age where I knew that movies were fake anyway. So a lot of the violence that I would see on there, I knew wasn't real.
That's how my mom talked to me about everything entertainment wise. And I mean, I was getting Beverly Hills Cop stuff at like 9 years old. I was like, can I get I want the movie, I want the soundtrack. You know, it's an R-rated movie. Like all of them, you know, it wasn't really a big deal. It's just, you know, don't say those words and it's fake, you know. Never got into a fight, never shot anybody. So sorry, I'm boring, folks.
Wow. I'm so disappointed right now, Joe. Or at least I'm disappointed in half of you.
I'd make $1 billion no matter what I did if I had a violent history. It's just not me, man. Yeah, we clearly don't have much to say about The Acolyte. We stopped talking about it over an hour ago.
There's not much to say.
The audience has been here, folks. You like us. We love you. Thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything to look forward to next week? I don't know if I told this on air, but I had talked to somebody from Forbes about this show last week, and they told me it's not great. It's shorter, but it's not great. It wasn't great.
No, it was not great. Man, things like Star Wars and Marvel and DC right now are giving me a newfound appreciation for the franchises I love that I grew up with that have yet to hit the fan. Like Godzilla and arguably for some people Jurassic. And
I like how you're always like, Godzilla hasn't hit the fan. I'm like, bro, 98.
Dude, that movie's peak Zilla. What are you even talking about?
That's a Roland Emmerich movie.
I unironically love that movie so much. It's not a good Godzilla film, but it's just too fun for me. I love it. It's the first one I got to see in theaters with my dad. Other than that, it was like watching all the black and white ones on VHS with really horrible dubbing with my buddy. But I just love the whole franchise front to back. And I'm glad that as a Godzilla fan, at least, it sucks to be a Star Wars fan right now. Sucks to be a Marvel fan. Sucks to be a DC fan. Now it sucks to be a Lord of the Rings fan, even. We don't even get that anymore. But as a Godzilla fan, I got -1, got GXK. There were actually some really good Godzilla comics this year. I just gotta take what I can for now and enjoy the things that I enjoy and then laugh at the stupid crap like The Acolyte that nothing happens and nothing matters.
Actually, I'm looking at right now, Toku Films on YouTube is streaming 24/7 the Godzilla and Friends movies.
That's amazing.
All of them for free. I'll put that in private chat. Go check that out later.
I would encourage that, and I second that. There's like I want to say it's like $300 or $400. I'm not going to buy it just yet. That's something to save up for. But there's a 4K Blu-ray set that's all of the old ones.
Yeah.
All of them. I'm talking like 54 through I think even like Final Wars,
right, or something. Yeah, like
I think it's up through Final Wars. And so I want that so bad, but I'm also like I could afford it technically. I'm also intelligent with my spending. I'm not just going to drop $400 on that right now.
Yeah, not right away.
But I do really want it because that's going to be like, man, that'll be my whole childhood watching the old horribly dubbed. Or at least I gotta believe they have them at least in subs. Those I will watch in subs. Those I will watch in sub.
I've got 32 of the Godzilla films from the Blu-ray set. So from 54 to 2004 with the 2016 Shin Godzilla.
It's amazing. Shin Godzilla is actually the only Godzilla movie that I have not watched. I'm not counting the animated stuff on Netflix.
Right.
Shin Godzilla is the only one I've yet to watch. Because I don't think it's streaming anywhere.
Might be on that Toku one in the private chat. Because they
I'm watching that right now. I turned that on. Godzilla's blasted a spaceship out of the sky.
They got Gridman on there. They got tons of stuff that they've been streaming 24/7. Like that's how I found like Reboot again. Like I haven't watched that show.
Reboot. Oh my gosh.
And it's all HD, which is even better. So, and what's funny is that they even include some of the behind the scenes stuff on there. And even the original creator said he is one day would love it if someone, help fund to complete the season. And this was before the Netflix reboot, which nobody who worked on originally ever counts as part of it. So if anyone out there has got a few $1 million and they want to see a conclusion of Reboot, that animated series, the first fully computer animated cartoon series that is preserved in the Smithsonian, go seek those guys out and give them some money. Because
have you been to the Smithsonian before?
Yes, I've been to their aeronautics part of the museum. I haven't been to all of their stuff because they have multiple museums for multiple things. But man, it's super awesome to see some of the old stuff that they've got in there.
I went in my sophomore year at college. We went to the part where we saw the real Colbert painting. We saw C-3PO. We saw all kinds of historic stuff. It was a fun time.
You mentioned the medium, the film and television stuff, media section. That was one I did not have time to see, but I was there with some friends who wanted to go into like all the aeronautics and flight and space stuff, because we hit that place, and then the next day we went to Florida, and then the day after that we went to Kennedy Space Center, and then we went to the Jet Propulsion Laboratories as well, and I ended up meeting a very fun girl there who we ended up dating for about 2 months, who worked there. She showed me some really cool stuff. So yeah, that was good times.
Speaking of the opposite, bad times, it seems like Andrew did not like what he saw. Are you talking about the Acolyte, Andrew, or us here? Like,
probably.
I was like, did we have a Captain Howdy moment? Yeah, somebody got killed on wrestling yesterday. It was a thing.
Oh, that's horrible.
No, I don't mean like killed. No. Like it's so hokey that they had like a character get killed.
Oh, he is broken in half.
Oh God, if the wrestler died, I would not be laughing at their expense. Hell no, I love. Look,
some freaking Owen Hart shit.
Yeah, I'm getting horrible
tragedy. I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, it was a Wyatt family ripoff thing. It was
come on. Really gonna rip off the Wyatts, especially after he freaking passed away tragically? What was it, late last year?
It's his brother that's doing it.
Wow.
That feels like a real gross play on emotions to me.
Yeah, some people are liking it and a lot of people are shitting on it. I just thought it was kind of funny and hokey, so I will find out more in the future. I won't be watching wrestling on Monday. Yeah, Chad Gable, Xavier to God, that's who died.
Dead. He is dead.
Yeah, the Wyatt Family 6 is what they're called now. Do you think Khmer is the Sith Lord? Yes, I personally do. If that's the Jason Mendoza character, I'm convinced that guy is the Sith Lord. It's just blatantly obvious.
I think this episode sold me on Script's theory there. I think that actually might be the case. So Script, if that ends up being the case, that really sucks because they did a really piss poor job. But props to you for reading them like an open book.
Oh, I did that with season 1 of Mandalorian when I knew that they're setting up Boba Fett when Fennec Shand was shot, and they had the same audio cue that was only in the special editions for Boba Fett. Queued up for there. I'm like, that's the same audio cue that they used in the Jabba the Hutt scene in the New Hope special edition. And yeah, that's Filoni tipping his hat. His stupid
Filoni
hat.
is Cowboy. There are people in space that used to refer to Dave Filoni as Cowboy Dave because they believed so strongly in him. Well, Cowboy Dave is actually a one-trick pony, and that one trick was Ahsoka. Mileage may vary, and that's it. That's all he had. He's a hack. He's
No,
an
no, he
absolute
is a hack. But like I've had a couple of friends that have recently worked with him. And they say one thing is that he's got a mind like a steel trap when it comes to Star Wars, and you can catch him in a lie when he's trying to take ownership of something of himself for himself. And that he has encyclopedic knowledge of Star Wars, which is why I think Lucas liked him a lot, because anytime Lucas would bring up something about Star Wars to the office, the Filoni was probably the first and only one that actually knew 100% what he was talking about and able to convey that to the rest of the crew.
Sam Witwer, who voiced Galen Merrick in the Force Unleashed games, as well as Maul in was it Rebels? I think it was Rebels. He has a stronger grasp on Star Wars lore than Dave Filoni.
Well, he understands Star Wars actually better than Dave Filoni, but yeah.
He's corrected him on multiple occasions. I always enjoy watching clips of that.
But according to I do know somebody that worked on a lot of Star Wars stuff. Dave Filoni's a brown noser. That's the real thing.
I believe
That's the secret. It's not just the knowledge. It's the brown noser, because this dude designed ships and stuff. He's been on the channel. It's not a secret. But Dave Filoni, brown noser extraordinaire. I liked the Clone Wars show. I didn't even it got me to like the prequel era. So I can't.
To this day, I haven't finished it. I've only seen the first 2 seasons.
Oh, really? It gets really good.
I've heard that it gets extremely good after starting with season 4 is what I think people keep telling me. I never get around to it. I just never.
I wouldn't watch it now.
Time. I'd rather just read or listen to the audiobooks of the EU stuff that I like more than the live action productions at this point.
What's atrocious is how much of the live action productions are plucking from the EU and bastardizing it completely. Hey, we're going to decanonize all this stuff, but then we're going to actually co-op ideas and plot threads and characters from this stuff that we just canonized and claim doesn't exist, and we're going to claim it as our own. Piss off. Sit and spin on rusty rebar.
I don't even know how to respond to that, Andrew. That's nasty. You nasty.
I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about it at all.
You shouldn't. You guys good? You think we should go? I think we've kind of exhausted the topic, and we'll be back next week, folks. Thank you for everybody who stuck with us.
Back Wokebusters.
Yeah, I was about to say, help us get past the goal so we can get the books out to, well, let me rephrase that. Everybody's going to get their books already, but this is to help expand and do tons of stuff and really, your comic book entity myself. I got a lot of good stories, folks, and I do need your help to help us keep these things going. So let's make that happen, and, I'll play you the trailer on the outro. Anything else you guys want to say before we go?
It's always a pleasure to be here tonight with you guys and everyone out there in the chat.
Everybody in the chat, we had almost 400 people watching over on Twitter at one point. I don't know where we're at right now. I don't know what we're at in terms of on YouTube.
Here's the thing. I just look at the conjoined numbers. It was 7 and 18 or something like that. So we were it was moving along. We were not too bad from last week. People liked what they found, so they've been coming
If you
back.
haven't already done so, don't update freaking YouTube, because I have premium. Asked me if I wanted to update the watch screen. I hate it. I can't view any information. There's nothing. I can see the chat. I can see a bunch of other videos. I can't see any information about the stream. I can't see any information about the channel. It is trash. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You have been warned.
They did a slow rollout of their new interface a few months ago for everybody.
It is hot garbage.
In certain areas. I hated it, and then luckily it went away, and it's I hope they never do it again.
It is so bad. I regret everything. I regret all the things.
Man, well, I'm glad I haven't made that change yet. I don't want to regret everything. I got a lot of stuff to deal with. I don't want to regret stuff. So, folks, I will be back tomorrow with an Acolyte review. You guys like those, so I'm going to continue to do them. Be on the lookout for some new toy videos as I go around the country soon, and soon around the world. So be on the lookout for that. But, folks, help us grow Oakbusters. Let's get this thing past its goal. We're not even halfway there yet, but let's take it there. Let's take it beyond. Let's do some big stuff. Remember, folks, it pokes fun of the society that we live in. So, like the cartoony society, Wokebusters is cartoony, and if you hate the world, if you think the world we live in is silly, well, then you're going to love this book. Hate's a strong word. We just kill everything with humor because that's the way we do it. But until next time, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Don't you just hate wokeness and the toll it takes on society? Well, bust it with Wokebusters. Set in a world where outrage turns people into literal monsters, Wokebusters follows the 4 men who step up to save society from itself. It's funny, colorful, and action-packed. This 100-page epic is only available on Kickstarter for a limited time, so act now before the clock runs out and wokeness wins. Got outrage? Call Wokebusters.